Hello, everyone, and welcome to another show on the World Crypto Network. My name is Chris Ellis. So, closing remarks today. Let's go change the world together, as long as you're rich. That's right. If you want your feet under the table of the new pyramid, you'd better know a lot of things about the people you need to know about. So today I am joined by Thomas Hunt, Mad Bitcoins. And we also have a special guest today, Nick, aka Pi Rebel from Twitter, who's been following us for some time. Unmute yourself.
Thanks for inviting me. This is awesome.
Thanks for being here. We have Ray from yesterday who joined us.
Ahoy, thank you very much. Happy to be a part of the panel.
Happy to have you back. And of course, Theo Goodman from Frankfurt, Germany.
Hello, everybody. Crypto.
So what did you guys think of today's CoinSummit? I mean, it certainly seemed a lot more elitist than the day before. Certainly seemed like there was a lot more money. And we started off the day actually with the developers. They were talking about the 51% problem, and I was really surprised that they didn't have the guys from Sexio, given that those, the people there were actually at the conference. They weren't there to address any of those questions head on. Did
They
anybody
certainly
catch it?
sponsored the event, but they didn't talk about it.
That was what I was really waiting for the whole time. I didn't tweet about it, but I was waiting. I was like, when is CEX going to come out and say, okay, we know what's up. We had 50%. We want to change something, or let's talk about it. Let's figure out why that happened, and if it's okay, and what we're going to do about it in the future. Because we know we're off. I mean, from their point of view, they could say we're offering such a great service that everyone is cloud mining with us, and we have to figure out a way that we don't always have 51. Because
And we're gonna split into 4 parts and have the 4 parts compete against each other. I don't know.
Yeah,
they
maybe
need to do
just
something.
name them different names or anonymous. But I think I mean, you could argue on the one hand it's unhealthy, and the main thing is that even from a business point of view, it hurts them because everyone freaks out and everyone is like, hey, 50, I'm not anything going on, is Bitcoin stable and all that, and we need to talk about if it's really a threat, how we're going to deal with it, why does CEX suddenly have a lot of power. One reason they have a lot of power is they used to have no fees or really low fees. They changed that they changed that to collect fees, and now they make a lot of money. Yeah, they changed that to kind of slow things down. I think it's kind of like kind of like in China when the economy gets going too quickly. They're like, oh shit, it's going crazy. We got to control that. We got to put out that fire. So they added fees, or they increased the fees they had to try to slow down the mining fire. But I don't know I don't think they're interested, or they're not, or they didn't want to talk about what they could possibly do. What do you guys think? Or Nick, what do you have to say about all this?
They offer more than their competition. It's pretty much as simple as that. Their competition has not been competing for like months and months and months now. I mean, when we had BTC Guild was, running the show, and they were 40, 50%. There was people trying to compete against them. There wasn't this entity that was cloud hashing, selling you gigahash, and also allowing you to exchange coins on this all one platform with tons of great charts and an easy-to-use UI and stuff like that. I mean, look at Slush. Slush has been around for how long, and it's the same exact webpage it was 2 years ago?
Yeah, but doesn't this come down to the fact that now the barrier to entry to mining before was actually having to set up the hardware? Now you don't have to have that expertise. You don't have to take physical possession of it. You can just pay money over the internet, and you've got that hashing power. It takes away a lot of the barriers to entry.
Yeah, well, cloud mining takes away a lot of barriers to entry. I mean, in the sense you just send them bitcoins and you buy gigahash and you're mining. I mean, I give CX credit for being transparent in the sense that you can tell that it's not a Ponzi scheme, because there are other places where you can buy mining contracts, but you don't see your worker, you don't know how many, you have no. It's just a black cloud. So that's shady, So at least they set it up they're like Chris, you said before, they did a good job on design. It's really sleek. It's easy to use. Like Nick said, they're better than their competition. That is without a doubt. But I mean, we've got to. The thing is that the ASIC miners are going to get more expensive, more powerful, and the mining is going to centralize in data centers where you buy a part of the data center. Now, the question is this a good development, or is this a bad development, or what do we need to think about this? It's really changing the architecture of mining. There's not mining at home with 2 ASIC blocks is not really feasible anymore, at least for Bitcoin. You know, what hasn't been feasible for a while, I think. I mean, I guess if you have one room and really cheap electricity in the country where you live or the state where you live, maybe it's feasible. But I think that's going to be a thing of the past. People are going to be really nostalgic in the future, be like, oh, remember when we had miners at our own house?
Well, Nick had a question that we didn't quite get to ask. I did try to CC Cecile, but you were asking about getting the mining power into mobile phones.
Yeah, why can't I mean, you can put a little hashing engine onto an ARM and contribute, what, half a gigahash. And
Yeah.
you put that across 1 billion mobile phones, that's a huge amount of hash power. And that's probably something that can be ran idly in your pocket when you're not using it.
It exists already. It doesn't exist for SHA-256.
Exactly.
But I have tested. There is a Grostal miner for Android, and it works. And there's also one called Litecoin Miner, but I think it's just using the CPU power of your phone to mine. I've set it up with. I've got it to work with some altcoins before. I mean, I saw my tiny bit of hash power, so it works in theory. But I think that you're right. That has potential, and that goes to with what some people are talking about, that all of these objects that could generate hash power idly could be used somehow in the future, perhaps.
And I'd also like to make a point that data center mining is going to happen regardless of what kind of chips you use. Just because of the way energy densities and heat density works, just the physics of everything requires some sort of data center for large amounts of hash rate. So unless you're going to get away from proof of work, you're going to have data centers, and you're just going to need lots and lots and lots of data centers.
And particularly in areas where the electricity is cheap. So I'd like to welcome Jason King to the show. Hello, Jason.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, good to see
Welcome.
you.
It's my favorite person in Bitcoin.
Right, me too. So I always tell people he's not celebrated nearly enough. So Jason, tell us your thoughts on CoinSummit. £720 a ticket, and that was just the discount rate. The actual sticker rate was $1,400, which is about 4% of a nurse's salary in the UK. Well, how do you feel about it?
Well, so it's also sold out. So I mean, I believe in markets, right? So obviously, there's a market who thinks that this is a good idea. I just can't imagine spending that much money for it. And we're kind of working the other way. We're trying to create a value-priced conference or celebration where it's a little more accessible to everyone. I think the problem with it is that obviously, if you're charging £720 for a ticket, what you're saying is that this is for rich people, and like this is to meet rich people and talk to rich people, and that's going to really make a very hard bar to entry for a lot of people to be able to get into that conference.
Right. I mean, my feeling is that Pamir and Gulnar are very talented people that have a lot of experience in the event space. Why wouldn't they use that gift and that talent for people at the other end of the social strata? Why invest in an area that's already overinvested? Why not invest in the area that has the most potential for growth?
Well, I guess it's going to come down to like what their ultimate ends are. I mean, like if they're just trying to make money on a conference, I think what they're doing makes a whole lot of sense. Like if they've sold out the room at £720 and their goal is just to make money on a conference, that's what they're doing. If their goal is to spread the benefits of cryptocurrency to the largest available audience, what they're doing is not achieving that goal, and it's actually stifling it. So I think that's where that's why we need to see conferences. Like I'm super happy with Mo and Matthew Rozak, who is at CoinSummit right now, but they have they made Chicago $100 conference, and that's the first conference with that price point. And I think that's why we're going to see Chicago is going to be insane. I think there's going to be thousands of people in Chicago because that's dropped the price down a lot. And then like I'm announcing right now we're having a conference at Disney World in October, and it's going to be $60 a ticket to get into, and $99 hotel rooms. So it's October 4th and 5th, and then on the 6th, everyone's going to go invade Disney World. I see people right now that are like, "Oh, I'm going to go tweet that right now." But yeah, we'll announce more about that. But I think that having something where we can get a whole lot more people involved in getting to one of these conferences is probably a good thing overall for acceptance and getting people into crypto.
I should say for the record that Pamir is claiming that he's not making any money on these conferences. I think mostly this is about reputation for him. So he just wants to kind of mingle. But I did hear on the grapevine through a few of my friends, on text message and stuff, that apparently last night's CoinScrum event at London felt very kind of snooty, that you were kind of expected to kind of, talk to money, and you were expected to kind of respect their wallet. And I was getting all this terminology, and I was like, what does it mean to respect someone's wallet? I don't even know what that means.
They've been trying to, navigate this conversation in a certain way for about a year now.
Right. I really respect your wallet, man. I just want to say it's so great to meet, and I really respect your wallet.
Which one? The one in my pocket or the one on my USB stick, right?
No, dude, your Dogecoin wallet. I really respect that Dogecoin wallet, dude. You're a Dogecoin millionaire.
Right.
I don't.
I don't think he's going to get any cheaper.
I'll be right back.
Just to speak on that point, that if they sold out the room, it's not going to get any cheaper. The bar's been set. So what can be done? I think that we have to take an approach where there's got to be continued innovation. Like he just mentioned his event coming up in October. We touched on this, I think, kind of like yesterday too. On instead of taking, say, like a red ocean approach, right, where the market's saturated, which it seems to be taking that tack, then take a blue ocean strategy where you touch on that experience. Get people to actually use Bitcoin in some way, shape, or form. If it's a way to do so, maybe run around Disneyland and, I don't know, tag each other with Bitcoin. I'm just, saying, right? Something that still provides the value, foments the conversation, but goes about it in a different experience to try to do something different than what the conferences are doing. Because that conference model seems to be becoming entrenched now with that price point.
Well, to me, what this signals is there are enough mugs out there that will give the VCs and the incumbent powers that much power over them that they will start begging them. I mean, this is the special VIP Brock Pierce party that was after the first night. You see Max Kaiser, who, I'm kind of, he inspired me in many ways. His early shows to really get into this, he really channeled the anger that I think a lot of us felt deep down, towards the banks. But now, so it's, Brock's party. I mean, I don't know how I feel about Max now because he's done so many of these pump and dumps, but he still seems to be saying a lot of the right things. I mean, what do you think of these parties? Are they just not completely and utterly missing the point?
Well, yeah, having a party's fun, but when they want to have a party and try to bring in a whole bunch of people that don't understand the core systems that are going on, it's not very productive. And I like Max Kaiser. I'm going to be on his show in August with Jules, but nobody's perfect. We're all human beings. I'm not perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes, so I don't know what.
But he is the one that on one of his shows he actually quotes Adam Smith for saying, men of industry rarely get together to converse and talk about the weather. It's nearly always they get together to converse about the price and collude on the price.
Bingo.
Bingo.
Adam Smith said it. Everyone understood the power of greed. Right.
So there he is quoting Adam Smith on his show, but then there he is going to some VIP party. And my only hope for him really is that he's trying to bust his way on the inside out. And actually, to be fair, he was trolling with the rest of us yesterday. He didn't go to, I don't think he went to the, he was trolling the VC panel. And he was saying stuff like, yeah, these guys are just about to get disintermediated by, Swarm and Counterparty, Mastercoin, these kind of things. So, okay, so I'm a little bit on the fence at the moment.
Yeah, well, he also, fought, or symbolically fought this, banker guy at the Bitcoin fight night. So maybe he's, trying to pick a fight for the next one. He's trying to find, victim for the
But
next.
he did that wearing a Max Coin shirt. Which
Yeah, it was Max Coin shirt that's
Yeah.
supposed to kill the banker or whatever
Right.
little show. But
And he,
yeah,
and he catches a lot of flack sometimes from Max Coin, but we've had discussions in the past at panels and stuff where we hope everybody has their own coin at some point. So if that's where we're going to, I don't think we should ever criticize Max or Tatiana and be like, "You have your own coin. We don't like you." I think it's a fun idea.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with Max. I agree. He's playing both sides a little bit, but I like him overall. And he's definitely inspired.
Well, I want to let's have another literary reference. The worst part of Dante's Inferno was for the frauds that didn't believe in either thing. They always sat on the fence. They were always equivocal. And it wasn't, so at least the frauds that had a belief and a conviction in something, at least they had some, moral kind of grounding. Dante thought that the people that deserved the most punishment was the people who stood on the sidelines until the last moment and then they picked a side.
Yeah, because they chose to fail. It was a failure of inaction, which is the deepest kind of failure. You were so scared and anxious that you never even tried.
Yeah, so that's how I'm feeling. Is a lot of people, like in the game, like in tennis, you get up on 2 feet 'cause you could go in any direction. That's what a lot of people are doing right now. They're poised and they're waiting and they're looking at everyone else instead of just like looking inside. I still feel like most of this is an internal struggle that people are facing, not something they should just be looking to someone else because they don't know what to believe or say. And I've lost count of the number of friends that I've lost in London because they say, look, Chris, I don't want to tell the truth because my kind of job depends on me towing the party line. I can't say everything that I want to say because I need to pay my rent. And it's like, well, why are you so wedded to your lifestyle? Why can't, that's what makes you so poor, is that you don't know how to live within your means. You've got used to a certain standard of living and you just can't get over that attachment.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I think that the great thing about Bitcoin cryptocurrencies are that it untethers us from the cult of personality. But those are things that humans, a lot of people, have not yet realized that, hey, look, this is now something powerful enough to empower you to do the things that you want to do without looking outward, without looking to someone, without walking around in a zombie-like state, seeking to touch the hem of the garment, so to speak. Now you have the power to do the things that you want to do. What are you going to do? And I think a lot of people are afraid of that person.
But my only concern with it is that it then all becomes about tribes and sociology, and it's not. I said it earlier on Twitter. It's not who you know; it's what you know about who you know, right? Because
Right.
because what happens is that everyone makes mistakes in their lives, and sometimes, like particularly if you're in a big organization, what will typically happen is you'll fuck up, or maybe you'll do it deliberately. You'll have a few witnesses, and then you'll spend the rest of your career just paying those witnesses off so that they don't, rat you out or whatever. I've heard of this. There's been a lot of, stories told about this before. But a lot of these people that this happens to yield quite a lot of control and a lot of power. And if we don't have transparency early, if we don't come to terms with the fact that privacy is a function of time, because it's only a matter of time until that information is free, then really we're just going to be stuck in the same old vicious circles. We're going to be making bad laws, and we're not going to be honest with ourselves about the nature of reality.
Yeah, we should all just be honest that we all suck. Like, we should just, we should come to terms with the fact that, we all, really, we all do stupid, ridiculous shit sometimes that wasn't the best plan, and to, make your life goal just, hiding the fact that you suck is, it's a terrible way to continue on with your life.
And that's what Socrates said.
Yesterday. Sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, wasn't there a great example of, I believe, Derek showing his vulnerability when he was struggling with the two I think it was?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that he was even struggling. He was just being really honest about how he felt, because we could kind of maybe read the emotions on his face, but him bringing us into that and bringing us down to the skin, into the chest, and letting everybody in with honesty. That's why honesty is so important, because honesty is the medium which allows you to get close to other people and really understand where other people are coming from. And honesty is just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's not about telling the truth all the time. It's just about telling the truth at the right time when it's most appropriate. I think.
I don't know. You said that yesterday, and I agree and I disagree. We should try to tell the truth as much as we can and really, really try. But also, we don't want to give away too much information about things that we're doing and put ourselves at risk. So I know that there's a balance, but I always try to lean as much towards brutal honesty as I can.
Well, everything has a time preference.
Say more.
The truth, the truth, information is going to come out when it's best for it to come out. It's not regardless of anybody's interactions on it, just like information theory. It just moves, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, and it's about knowing what I mean to say is that just telling the truth all the time, like just telling someone exactly what you think of them, isn't always it would just be unbearable. I think some people often don't get the right balance. Also, it's important for authenticity that we don't feel like we're constantly being monitored and watched, because when I'm constantly being watched, I start to notice myself, and when I notice myself, I can't forget myself. I can't lose myself in the moment.
Hey, yeah, it is tough too. Oh, go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
Well, it's also that it's like a lot of times, like what you were just saying, is that your first impression of a situation it isn't accurate, and you actually need time to process as to like the information that you're getting. And if you just give someone immediately your reaction to it, it's not necessarily an honesty thing per se. Is that once you've had time to actually process the information, you actually might feel differently about it.
Mm.
So I think that there is value to biting your tongue sometimes and just thinking on things.
So,
But that's completely different than like purporting to be one thing and being something completely different.
Yeah.
Those are
so what about today? I read on Twitter, because I missed it, about there was this guy that said we can ban certain Bitcoin addresses from doing things that we don't want to. Was he telling the truth, or what was he
Oh
talking?
man, that was John. That was Johnny Levin. Oh boy, I mean I know him.
Ouch.
He's from Oxford, and we've met a couple of times over at some Feathercoin meetups and stuff. I went to one of his talks at Oxford University. I can't believe he said that. I really hope that he was just misspeaking. I really hope that that question put him on the spot, and he just said yes because he wasn't sure what to say and maybe he overpromised. So the question was, so his software, Coinometrics, gathers information about the public blockchain, runs some IP protected algorithms on it, and then licenses that information out to anyone that can afford it, which will mean the banks and the regulators, I'm guessing. And the question came up, could you stop terrorist payments, or could you identify terrorist payments? And he said basically yes. There was a little bit of a caveat in there he threw in there just to say, well, tentatively yes, but he was like, yeah. And I was like, my God, that's a really, really bad idea. We've had this question raised lots of times, and all it does is kicks up lots of controversy. And Andreas addresses it really well. We've already got common law in Scotland about this that's like 300 years old. You can't have a situation where people don't know what their money's worth. How do I know that I haven't just received terrorist funds from 2 or 3 degrees of separation?
You don't.
Yeah,
know.
I mean, like just look at it in terms of Sean's Outpost, right? It's like we get anonymous donations to help people with. And could you imagine if coin validation became a real thing, and whereas like money was put into our wallet, but we have no way of knowing whether we could actually utilize those funds because they're going to get blocked. Like how the hell am I supposed to do cash flow analysis like based on money that I don't know if the money's value is what the money value is going to be?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of ridiculous stuff.
And I think that people always are trying to improve on one feature set of Bitcoin or do different things. And what Bitcoin is a myriad of features. It's all these different features that work really well in concert with one another. So when people try to do and change these different things to say they've improved, what they're actually doing is transcending the definition of Bitcoin itself and making very negative progress. So I think that trying to identify which coins are dirty and which are clean and close off accounts and stuff would be extremely negative progress to the balance of all the feature sets that Bitcoin has. Bitcoin is the perfect balance of feature sets that I know of so far, especially versus any altcoin. And I think it's important for us to remember that if they change Bitcoin in a way that breaks it, that's transcending the definition. That's not Bitcoin anymore. We'll make another blockchain if we have to.
Right, that's what will
Amen.
happen.
They
Another more extreme version.
Coinmetrics answered the whole Twitter thing, and it says that it's possible. They said geolocate based on IP addresses and alert a merchant who voluntarily decides if they accept or not. So I mean, it sounds really horrible to me, like we've been talking.
I'm sorry, but the data's not rich enough. So what they're saying, so there are 7,400 nodes on the Bitcoin network at the moment. So and most of those are proprietary nodes. They're owned by BitPay or blockchain.info or one of the other businesses. And what they do is they just put lots and lots of Satoshi clients dotted all over the world on cloud servers. And then what happens is when a miner publishes a block, if you were one of the first nodes to receive that block, that then puts the IP address, obviously, of your node into the the debug.log file. They can then take that from a centralized source and say, well, the log, it must have been processed somewhere around here, and they can get a kind of generalized location. Quite how these proprietary closed-sourced algorithms are supposed to tell you what the intentions of the merchant accepting the coins were, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, or even if there's one or two people that are owning different addresses, or if it's going to the same person, and how do you know if it's nefarious for that singular activity? There's so many different questions that come into scope that from an information science, like project management perspective, it's like this is a bloating scope. This is not going to be a project that we can program and do.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of bad ideas, to be honest. Also, Realcoin came up as well, and that was and they didn't even address it properly. That's why I was trolling them so much on Twitter, because a lot of it I just felt like the wrong questions were being asked. It was just really safe questions.
Yeah, in the
missed
UC
that.
Crypto Anarchy Club, we were saying that they're pursuing the limits of not getting it.
Yeah. Sorry, Nick, did you say?
I said I missed the real coin thing. That happened during my like 2-hour nap at the beginning.
It came up really, really briefly as part of the Mastercoin when they were talking about the Metacoin panel. They talked about it, and the guy was just like, "Oh yeah, this is a good on-ramp to get people into Bitcoin." But then he threw in the KYC requirements for buying real coin. So wait a minute. You're saying that in order to buy your real coin dollar coins, you've actually got to, you know, give over your legal identity, and then of course you're on a blockchain. So now, even if you do then on-ramp into Bitcoin, they've then got your Bitcoin address, which now means that they know who you are. It's just like, we're just building more gatekeepers. It's just like now, instead of like having a go at the tyrant, you get to go at being the tyrant. Yeah. Right now, anyway, like everyone can be a tyrant. What a good idea.
Yeah, yeah,
that's a great idea. I want to be a tyrant.
Yeah, let's all be tyrants.
I'm tired of like helping people. I think we should have a bunch of little tyrants everywhere. That's it. I'm Sean Zappos is disbanding right now. I'm starting Tyrant Coin.
It's funny too, because Jason and I are both parents and stuff, and to think about that from a parenting perspective with your own kid and stuff is just really it's a funny joke to me.
Right, I am too. Children think of us as gods, and as if they don't know anything greater than us. We have to feed them, clothe them, murder them. That's just how it is. They see us that way. So we need to treat them with the utmost care.
Yeah, my kids don't think I'm a god. My kid's right here, like you can see him. He's putting together a Wii. Yeah, he's like he could care less. I'm just gonna be here.
Oh, we're losing the feed from Jason just at that moment where we needed it.
Hello.
Oh, now you're back.
I'm back. Yeah.
Okay.
My kid's just gaming.
I thought it was
just gaming it up.
I thought it was really quite revealing that it took until halfway through day 2 to get a question. Can you see? So this is the COO, Tony Casserly of ChangeTip. And I thought I'd bring this up because she asked a question about philanthropy. And I noticed that that was the first time in the entire conference that that word had even been used.
Wow!
So she brings it up, and the reason I bring it up is because we all use ChangeTip on Twitter, and I think it's a great service. It's part of these. Is it Startup 500 or one of those incubator accelerator type schemes? They're based in Boston, and I've had quite a good to and fro with them on Twitter. And for me, that's the killer app. Like, this is when you start getting this currency with social media, it really starts acting like currency. And so she sort of threw it at one of the early panels. Let's see if I can work out. Does anyone remember which one it was?
It was asking China, because they were talking about how their market is more speculative and there's a different approach, and they're having trouble getting consumers involved. And she asked if they had thought of taking a well, you can just finish it from there.
Thought of taking a more, philanthropic approach rather than just having it be a glorified casino, which is all Wall Street is. It's just a casino, but it's a casino where everyone plays fancy dress. They all turn up in suits. They come up with, fancy marketing and literature terms and all this complicated mathematics to make it look like it's more sophisticated than it really is. And really, it's just a way of giving up on life. You're like, right, fine. I'm not going to try and work for a living. I'm just going to leave everything to chance because I think the rules of society are unfair. So the same thing.
they have a slightly different culture there too. You know, they're more family oriented. They're more like you have to take care of your parents in China, right? The social security net is your family. It's not a
Right.
paycheck from the government.
Latin America, same way, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were saying, like, Charlie Lee from BTC China was saying that he had in 2011 when they first started, they had people writing in saying, "Can I give you my money? How do I give you my money? Because I've heard this thing goes up, 2 times in a day, So that there, all you're doing is you're just playing. Not everyone gets to win. In fact, most people lose in that kind of game because no one can time the market.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that their social net and taking care of each other is just different than what we experience here in the West. So then charity isn't as prevalent as, say, in the United States, where philanthropy is pretty much everywhere.
Well,
yeah. Collectivism is antithetical to solidarity. So solidarity refers to the connections in our society and how you feel about other people and how you care. And when there's a lot of collectivism and everybody's competing for fixed resources in a net loss system, it makes people resentful of one another. It causes the stabbings at the train stations and stuff, even though there's no guns around. No matter what you do, it's a net loss system of kryptonite to solidarity. So China is really, really, really having a hard time with that kind of peaking as of late, I think.
But even when I give a donation, I still own it because I still feel like I'm spending money when I give a donation.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure. I agree with you, Chris. Like, they should take that route. I just don't think it's really been pushed because it's just not a necessity. Like, charity isn't a necessity as much as they hear.
Oh, but is it charity? Jason, you must have lots of thoughts on this.
I actually came back, like I was talking to my children and had it on mute, so I missed half the conversation. So I don't. If you give me a brief recap, I'll be happy to do that.
So Tony Casserly from ChangeTip asked a question of the China panel when they were talking about Bitcoin in China. Were there any plans to integrate more philanthropic devices or tools or features into their software, like ChangeTip, where you can send donations and tips over the internet? And I think they kind of fudged the question. Basically, the answer was no. But what we're talking about is this need for a kind of a gift economy, because giving is a vital part of building connections and value and relationships on top of the blockchain.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I don't. The question was going to BTC China, right? It was Bobby Lee.
Yeah, or the whole panel, I guess.
It went to the whole panel.
Yeah, I guess from obviously I love easy charitable giving. I love ChangeTip, and I agree with you completely that I think one of the best examples out there of the true use of Bitcoin is when you see it engaged in social media. From an exchange standpoint, I don't know how. I don't know that I see a responsibility for BTC China to start becoming philanthropic, but in terms of charity in China, I actually think that they probably do need a whole lot. But one of the issues is over there too is there's a very strong caste system, so it's like the people that are poor over there are just expected to stay poor. Like there's not really a whole metric of like there's upward mobility. It's like if you're in abject poverty, well, that's what you're going to be. That's what your children are going to be. Like you're kind of going to stay there. So I also don't really know enough about that specific geographic area to really give anything of value on it.
Well, I think what I would
that was valuable.
No, that was very valuable. I mean, there's something that Michelle Seven has said a few times when Tom and I were raising money to go to America. She described it as begging. And I kind of felt slightly like, well, not really, because we've been making videos and we're promising to make more when we get there. So isn't that just a value for value exchange? The problem we've got at the moment with the internet is that everyone expects the content to be free because there are no physical barriers anymore. And so on the one hand, I kind of see what she means. You don't want to end up in a situation where people having to plead with their customers to give them money. Please, I know I can't force you to do it, but now you've consumed the content, please would you consider giving a donation? There is something about that that's slightly demeaning and undignified. But I don't see it as begging because you are actually providing with a value in return.
I don't think it's undignified at all. I think that that's maybe something that kind of rubbed off from her to you, and that you should try to rub it off again like something on your shoe, because that's not a good way to look at life, or to, like that's, anybody can frame something in a negative perspective, and that's kind of where I was going back with honesty before. I try to frame everything in a very, very specific positive perspective, and then try to be honest from that point. And then you're right, if I'm not in that place, then I have to try to not be so honest, because I might hurt somebody's feelings. And it's, to call it begging, I think is really an incendiary thing, and I hope that it doesn't continue to affect you, because it's not begging. You're producing content that people enjoy.
I mean, it didn't affect me. I just thought it was an interesting.
As somebody who donated and whatnot, I did not feel it was begging. Like you said, you created content, and a problem is people feel the content should be free because it's so easily accessible. That just means it's really freaking cheap. It's not free. It's just really, 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 really cheap. That's why I won't pay $1 for a song. There's so many songs. I have access to so much music. I'll pay you 10 cents. How about 10 cents a song?
Yeah, price discovery and time preference, like you were talking about before. I really think that that's a good thing to compare the media and the music to. I think you're right about that.
But then it creates an imbalance, because our landlords and so on can exert more rent side pressure on us to hand over money for physical space, even though every human being on the planet could fit into the state of Texas with a 2-bedroom house. I mean, the world is a very, very big place, but we tend to concentrate ourselves around these urban centers.
But do you really want to live in Texas? I mean,
No.
honestly.
But I'm just trying to get the point across that the world is a very, very big place, but we don't belong to where we are. We belong to where other people are, and we tend to give other people preferential, powers over us, because we believe that we need to follow the crowd rather than, being confident and independent in our own beliefs.
What's wrong with Texas?
Nothing wrong with Texas.
I lived there for years. Like, I love Texas. I just was just asking Chris if he wants to live in Texas.
It's a bit dry in the hot months in that desert.
Rhode Island, everyone can stand up on Rhode Island and touch each other on the shoulders like that. Yeah, there's enough room for every human being on the planet.
So how many days is the conference in Chicago?
I think it's there's like a pre-drink and then a 2-day conference. So there's like a meetup night and then 2 days of conferencing. I think Jason probably might know more than me. I haven't talked to Mo a ton about it.
Yeah, it's so on Friday, I guess there's like a invite only thing at the House of Blues. I don't think it's a particularly hard ticket to get a hold of if you want to. They're going to be screening the rise and rise of Bitcoin, and it's just a mixer. And then obviously you can just go to the House of Blues. Like, it's not a private location. You can just go hang out there. That's Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday is the actual conference at the convention center. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, it's the North American Bitcoin Conference. Everybody should try to go out if you can. If you're in Chicago, definitely go. If you're nearby and can make a road trip, you should do that. Airfare is probably starting to get a little bit steep, and hotels are probably filling up, but there's still time if anybody wants to go to the North American Bitcoin Conference in Chicago on the 18th.
The hotel itself, like the hotel they were selling, is sold out, but there was a lot of inventory that's really cheap, really close to it. So, I mean, I think this is probably the most, value-friendly conference that's ever happened. $100 to get in the door, and there were cheap hotels. I mean, like, you could stay for less than like $150 a night, fairly close to the hotel.
Yeah, I'm like 2 miles away or less, and I got a really, it's like a Holiday Crown Plaza or something. It looks fancy, really, really, really cheap. I can walk to the conference, so I would encourage everybody to try to make it.
For sure.
So if you can't go to that, then you could go to Cryptolina. Cryptolina is in August, and but it's $200, but it's 2 days.
If I'm not in New York, I'll be there too. So hopefully, I'll see a lot of people at Cryptolina as well.
Added, I think Thomas showed us the other day the book, and they just added as a guest that Champagne guy, Phil Champagne, the author of Book of Satoshi, is going to be.
Yeah, that book is rad, man.
And Edmund Moy from the United States Mint is going to come there, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, and Andy Draper, right?
Adam Draper.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of Jeff Berwick from Dollar Vigilante is going to be there, so they got a pretty wide range.
Jason King is speaking there too, and he's kind of a shyster, so you might want to, steer clear.
Well, I'm sure there's some shysters mixed in. I mean, I don't know who organized it, but I think it looked like it. Who is the shyster? Let me check it out.
It's Jason himself.
Yeah, I saw this fellow we were talking about. They had a keynote panel.
You're going to speak or what?
What was that?
Are you going to speak there or what?
Yeah, I am. I'm just slacking on giving them a bio and a headshot.
Okay, because I was just looking at the list and I didn't see
Yeah,
you.
yeah, and then they're actually bringing the bus up too, so the Bitcoin Across America bus will be there as well. So
Oh, great. Cool.
should be a lot of fun.
I don't want to rehash stuff that we already know about, but Bitcoin in the Beltway was so much fun, and I loved the keynote panel. I thought that the discussion that you guys had with Megan and Davi and Andreas and Jason King, as we're talking to right now, it's really one of the most productive panels that I've ever been able to witness. Because usually when you get people on panels, they fight with each other and they have different agendas and stuff, and you guys were not confrontational with each other at all. You guys were all good friends that were clearly trying to solve some of society's biggest problems, and I didn't know a whole lot about charities and donation before that. Now I feel almost like I'm approaching a place where I could start to learn about it more and really get wheels on my own thing if I wanted to start something. So I really appreciated that keynote.
Yeah, but Blake, it wasn't the fraud capital of the world in banking. It wasn't here, was it?
It was in DC. It was in the military industrial capital of the world.
I'm glad you enjoyed that panel, man. We have been talking about that panel for months. It's something that we're all passionate about, but we've never really gotten to sit down and discuss, in an open environment, open forum like that. So I'm glad that you got some value out of it, and I think that you're going to start seeing a lot more like that, because that's really the area I'm going to start focusing on, is just trying to point out all of the cracks in the system of nonprofits and charities, because they're huge and they're getting worse. And as the state starts to topple, I mean, it's completely unsustainable. As that curtain gets pulled back, those cracks in that charity and nonprofit system are just going to get worse. So the more prepared we can be now, the better everybody's going to be.
Well, and the fact that you guys could cast a net over it and be like, everybody's talking about all these details and semantics. Let's talk about what really is going on here and about the real problems that we're facing and how we can really take ownership of them and solve them, instead of people trying to talk about the semantics of details sometimes with Bitcoin and investors coming in where they talk about the numbers, but to say, let's understand where we are, what our relationship is with our fellow man, and how to help and how to make changes. And if the system is stopping us, let's figure out how to undermine that too. And I thought that was just such a valuable conversation to have in the context of some of the bullshit that we see going on at these conferences, and I was just so happy.
Well, and I don't know how long everybody's been in Bitcoin, but in the beginning that was the whole narrative. Like, the whole narrative was about Bitcoin was about how it could be this empowering tool, how it could be used to help everyone. That was sort of the underlying theme, and then over time, we've gotten all of this other stuff going on. So it felt very refreshing to have that open discussion like that. So,
do any of you other guys find it interesting that a lot of these conferences now are actually taking actually going to the belly of the beast? Because this was a comment that came from Zach from Lamasu. He was saying, "I'm just looking forward to the day banks are completely irrelevant." But he was saying it like right in the belly of the beast. Like, he was saying, I actually CC'd on that tweet the Canary Wharf Public Limited Company, the private corporation that owns the land that he was sitting on. We also had this from Ethereum, from Gavin Wood, who's the lead developer of Ethereum. He was like, let's bring fairness and honesty and transparency to the world, in the very place that rewards dishonesty more than it rewards honesty.
Well, like at Beltway, we were 3 blocks from the Capitol, and Jeff Berwick's giving a speech called "How Bitcoin is the Bullet That's Going to Destroy the District of Criminals" in the District of Columbia. So I mean, I do think that's awesome, and I think that there's, on some level, we're doing it because we can do it, because that ultimately they can't stop us from doing it. No matter when they can talk about it, but it's ultimately just semantics. Is that we're in something that we've let out of the box that they can't really stop. They might be able to stifle part of it, but we'll just route around. So at least that's how I like it.
Sorry, not to step on your toes. To speak to your point, Bitcoin is a backstop. Cryptocurrencies are the backstop, and we finally have solid ground to stand on, and we know for sure that it will work, it does work, and whatever they throw at it, and they continue to throw at it, will fail. So it gives you the confidence, the courage, the confidence to do and say the things that need to be said and have wanted to be said for a very long time.
Yeah, no, quite. So just to remind everyone at home, you can actually ask your own questions. Bottom left-hand corner of this video, just click there and you can send in your Q&A if you've got anything to say, maybe some points you want to get across. If you watched the Coin Summit event today, what did you think? Did you think that the price was just a little bit too steep? I mean, actually, are the people that they're just mugs? And should we really be just mocking them? I felt that their bravery and courage in putting the Twitter feed up live behind the speakers, I mean, it must have been hilarious if you were watching the talks, because some of the stuff we were saying was like really cutting, like right in the middle of their talks, like just literally having a go at the idiotic comments that were coming up.
Definitely, definitely. I remember I posted, how dare they make fun of Dogecoin, because one of the introductions to one of those sofas was, so today we're going to speak about the mining profitability of Dogecoin. And everyone was like, ha, 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 ha. Oh no, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how we can get really rich, you know. And yeah, they just kind of dismissed it in a really tongue-in-cheek kind of way. And that was pretty harsh, you know.
Yeah, I have a little bit of I used to have a little bit of a vendetta with script coins and stuff like that, because people would tell me that they're ASIC resistant, that you can't make an ASIC or application-specific integrated circuit to mine it. And I was like, from a computer science perspective, that is completely ridiculous. Of course you can make one. You can, build more, unified memory locations and do that. And now, lo and behold, like I think 25% of Litecoin, or maybe even all script coins, are made in like one room in Asia somewhere. So I like Dogecoin and the meme in the community and stuff, but sometimes I get concerned about the technology. But I don't think that that's why they were laughing. So I'll have to say that that was a douche thing for them to do, to laugh at Dogecoin.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why Litecoin price has plummeted so much over the last few weeks, is because, if you were close to the manufacturing of the chips, why would you sell them? Of course you're going to mine. If you're that proximity. We've got one of our developers at Feathercoin is from China, and he was sort of showing off all of his sort of ASICs before we even got a shot of them, because of course they're all manufactured right near where he lives.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, they sold it as being ASIC proof when all you could ever really even advertise was maybe ASIC resistance. So I felt kind of bad for some of the, like me and Adam Kokesh had a really big debate actually years and years ago, and it ended amicably because we both kind of started to stop because we both felt really strong. But I had felt bad that somebody told my friend Adam that that Litecoin and Script was Facebook and that Bitcoin was MySpace.
Oh, I remember that.
I was like, Adam, no. And we're still friends after that and everything, but it could have gotten heated to the point where maybe we would have had a big disagreement. So
Sure.
I remember that.
It went from, what was it, ASIC resistant to ASIC retardant to
we'll see what we can do.
Exactly.
To 25% of the powers in one building. To
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, that people knew that, of course, you can program a chip to do whatever it wants. It's just like Nick, like I was telling Nick earlier, just as a matter of if you want to, or if it's profitable or whatever. I mean, you could make an ASIC for all of these things. Doesn't mean that it makes sense to do it for some of the algorithms, but you can do it. So nothing in principle is ASIC resistant per se. But
to that point, though, I don't think any other ASIC is really going to be as profitable. It's just not as profitable to design an ASIC for any other algorithm besides SHA-256D.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And Cointerra and Ravi Iyengar, I interviewed him. I know Ravi, the CEO of Cointerra, and he used to be the lead chip architect at Samsung, and then he read about Bitcoin and stuff, quit his job as the lead chip architect at Samsung. He also worked for Intel and Qualcomm. When I was interviewing him, I was recording him with my LG G2 phone. He was like, "That's a Qualcomm chip. I designed that chip." And I was like, I'm using the chip this guy designed to record him talking about revolutionizing mining technology and stuff. So he's always kind of my go-to guy when people are like, only stupid people will get into Bitcoin. I was like, well, my friend Ravi seems pretty smart, and he got into it. So.
Well, what about Blake 256? Does that make any difference, or is it also not really, doesn't make any sense to make an ASIC with that? What do you guys think?
What do you mean, like SHA versus Script?
Yeah,
and MD?
Blake 256 or 256D, or I don't know exactly right off the top of my head.
It'll depend on market penetration. If a coin using Blake 256 ever gets enough market penetration, maybe if the simplicity is there, if they could easily just jump over and maybe tweak some little designs or something, I don't know what they would have to do. But if the simplicity is there, I could see it happening. But the goal is to make it harder to use ASICs, and that's just not ever going to be profitable.
Yeah,
well,
we need to.
So like with Litecoin, like it's not that it was ever it was ever ASIC proof. It was just it didn't make fiscal sense for you to build ASICs for it. But that's what we had the discussion, because I was pretty heavily involved with Litecoin. When we saw it cross 50, I mean, it wasn't there for very long, but when we saw that it was possible for Litecoin to possibly be worth 50, like, it was like, okay, it's all over. Like, they're gonna, like, right now, everyone's tooling up for a script ASIC. And then so, and here it is, like, where there's just shitloads of them and competing ASIC companies, and we've got a damn arms race for script ASICs now. And it's really just market incentives. As soon as it became as soon as there was like a whisper that it could be profitable, that like you could make money doing that, you knew everybody was going to start tooling for it. So, and that's going to be everything. Like, if there's any possibility that it's going to be profitable, someone's going to do it.
So is the answer here to have open source hardware? Like you're seeing a lot of these open sourced housing projects where you can build up one of these houses like in a day with a small group of people with no construction or engineering experience, like the Wiki House project. There's these new housing now that's coming out of shipping containers, old disused shipping containers. This is becoming quite a thing. And also, like, just at Feathercoin, just a bit of promotion for a minute, like we've just made an open source point of sale which will cost somebody about, merchant £100 just to make themselves without, they can download the schematics, like all the circuit boards, they can print out on their own 3D printer and just use a Raspberry Pi. So surely this is the way forward now to actually start coding the hardware itself, the physics.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that that in the future reputation will be really huge, and not in a way that, hopefully not in an Orwellian way where everyone's being spied on, but everybody will have access to so much more information that the idea of reputation, which has been almost totally killed, will come back in a really, really big way. And so I think that, open source physical hardware projects, reputation, your capital that you put into helping other people and stuff will come back, and I'm really excited for that.
But what I mean is, like, do you think that the current state of society at the moment is going to become internalized? That anything that they can do in a manufacturing plant in China, I will soon be able to do in my own home with like a printer and some software. Is that what we're doing? Have we essentially, what I'm saying is, have we in the industrial period externalized the contents and ideas of our mind into the wider society only so that we could take it back in and make it micro again?
Well, yeah, I think that we traded everything that was going on in our heads with outside, and then everything that was going on in international manufacturing into something that we could 3D print, or eventually we'll have like things on our fingertips where we can Star Trek manifest whatever we want with actual cellular atomic construction of various materials.
It's almost as if we have to externalize the idea first to kind of see it in space, just so that we can atomize it and then give everyone the same control that only a king could dream of 200 years ago, say.
Yep, the Regis was in control. He was the throttle point of the amount of change, because if the king or Regis or whatever didn't have enough control over his people and they got out of hand, then your tax farm falls apart.
So then it comes down to the question of what do you do when everyone is the king and you need to behead the king, because there's a lot of heads you got to behead if it all gets out of control.
Yep, yeah, definitely. It's you're not going to have to war with a neighboring jurisdiction of kingdomliness. You're going to have to war with people that are right in your backyard that you thought were your subjects and that you could subjugate, and then it becomes a big uh-oh.
Now go on, Nick, you've got something to say.
Individuals don't wage war. War is a symptom of collectivism.
Okay, well, so you can say more if you want. Like, so I mean, I disagree with people all the time, and I have to admit, I don't feel like I want to kill them. But I imagine there would be people that would want to, get together. Well, maybe sometimes I do, if I'm being really honest.
But murder isn't war.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So do you not think there would be gangs and things that would come together in a world where everyone would have access to arms and stuff? So how would and are we happy with that idea, or?
Yes, I am better. I think it would be a better world if I only had to worry about you carrying a gun and not some fucking tank or bomb or plane dropping a bomb on me.
Yeah, a drone. Like the second you do something wrong. Yeah, that's not cool. Chris can't do that. I agree with you.
So you think it's more like if you're willing to outsource your you're okay with violence, then you outsource it to the government. And you're talking about when people actually have to take responsibility to defend themselves. That's a different situation. I mean, you might have gangs then or whatever, but it wouldn't be the same as having an occupying military force in our neighborhood, which is the police, which is kind of like, in a way, waging war against us.
Well, a long time ago, what we had was tax farms, and they would go send their cattle to go kill people, and cattle aren't very effective soldiers. So they invented Schule, and then everybody had to go to school, and then that would teach people to not retreat when they knew that they were going to lose the battle, so that they would be, slaughtered more easily, and they could control your troops more and know exactly how many people you can be able to kill with this amount of. So you have school invented, and then people get indoctrinated, and they have all this propaganda that makes them believe in the, the pride of nationality and taking credit for stuff that you had nothing to do with. Versus a gang, the gang might be able to educate the kids a little bit, but they're not going to have the perfect textbook example of here's how we've had school through history, here's how you crush somebody's sovereign will and motivation, here's how you turn people into automatons. So if we had, natural, various different, rival gangs, I think that it really would be better than this maximally bad, horrifying collectivist system that we have now.
And also, I think in the West, we kind of fool ourselves into thinking that we're free, but we're not free because our freedom relies on other people's slavery. So for many people, it's just normal to be occupied, like what's happening in Gaza right now, where it's actually normal to feel constantly like your world is under threat and you've always got to be ready for, always got to be stepping on toes. You can't just be free because you're always worried about what might happen. Anyone want to pick that up?
I'd say very well said. I'm thinking about what you said.
So we've got to ban 3D printing and we've got to ban Bitcoin, because the truth is none of us could actually be trusted, and we really need these central powers because we're terrible, all of us are, and I just wanted to pick up the control with you there.
So a better way to phrase this question, like when Cody Wilson came out with the 3D gun, everyone kept asking him why a 3D gun. No one asked why now, why you, what's the context. And the reason he claimed that he brought it out is because there was about to be a company that was going to do it proprietarily, and he wanted everyone to have it so that you don't just have it end up in the hands of a small collective or a small few people. So given that this technology exists, given that it cannot be uninvented, a constructive way of framing this debate is what do we do now, given that this is now true?
Given now that we can make 3D guns.
Yeah, and not only that, but drones as well. Drones are very cheap, so I could, in fact, go off and harass someone. In fact, just look at the way our media imagery.
Don't do harm.
Right, but how do you create a world where everyone plays by that dictum?
Honesty.
How do you outsource? How do you get someone else to behave that way? And is it right to force someone else to behave that way?
Well, I think that it's kind of an interplay, because when you're trying to force somebody else to act or work in a certain way, the first thing you want to do is try to not think of it as forcing them, and really communicate with them, let them in, treat them how you would want to be treated, and try to explain to them your problems or your preferences. Like if you're flying a drone near somebody, you have a speaker on it that says, "Can I film you right now?" and they say no, hopefully you would be like, "Well, I can, but I'm not continue to do that to this person unless they're a bad person that I need evidence on."
What you'd do is you'd shoot out the sky with your 3D printed gun, presumably. But
I'd have an EMP gun. I'd have an electromagnetic pulse, so I could distribute it in crowded areas.
I just would use an AK.
the old reliable standard. Mine would malfunction.
Is there an open source EMP gun yet?
I don't know, man. I don't know if I should.
Sure. Use your microwave. You bust the front open. You point it in the direction you need to, shoot the microwaves at and fry it.
Shotgun. That's kind of like an EMP shotgun. I mean, you're just shooting everywhere. You're not really.
Build a funnel. Build a funnel with some deflective metal shielding on the side so you can direct.
So you know what?
Aim it through a cathode ray tube.
I just want to get this back on track. So you know what bugs me is that when we have politicians disagreeing in public, nobody ever asks the public to actually talk to each other about the conversation. We always have to sit back and watch these fucking bunch of numpties. Just basically all a politician does all day, as far as I can tell, is just point at things and pass a comment, and anyone can do that. Like at the moment, we've got some trade union strikes in this country. The teachers are striking because they're getting paid £2,000 less than they were a few years ago, and yet they aren't the ones, as they've said, and the firefighters as well. They aren't the ones that stole from the public. They aren't the ones that had to get bailed out. And what I'm thinking is, well, why am I listening to a bunch of prats on TV who don't deserve any airtime and already get more than enough already? Why am I not hearing teachers talking to members of the public on TV? Why aren't they having that debate with each other? Why aren't the voters having that debate? The same thing when immigrants come in. Why aren't we listening to their stories when they come in? Why aren't we actually trying to find out why they want to be here and what we can do for them and how they can help us? Why isn't there more dialogue?
Well, that's dangerous. There's not dialogue. They don't want to have dialogue. That's why there's no discussion. They probably don't want to. The politicians don't want to talk to the teachers probably, and it's probably.
I just don't know why we outsource all of this decision making to a bunch of people that all they care about is staying in power.
Yeah, I guess I guess part of it is laziness, and part of it is like we've been talking about before. People aren't stupid, you know what I mean? But we treat them like they're stupid sometimes. You know, that they're idiots, that they can't do anything, that they couldn't manage to communicate what you're talking about, what the needs. I mean, there was like, you know, the VC panel and all that is talking about, yeah, we gotta, you know, we need a third party to do all these transactions because basically we gotta change Bitcoin to make it easy to use, so the transactions are fast. But no, that's not really true. It already works fine. It's not that hard to use. It's just a matter of, you know, explaining it in a way that people can understand. But you don't have to act like people are idiots and stupid. They don't really need a third party. And it's the same kind of mentality about outsourcing, you know, this kind of like what you're talking about outsourcing, because the people, maybe they don't believe in themselves enough to do that. That's why they trust politicians, maybe. I don't trust them.
Nick, have you got any thoughts on this?
Well, like for example, in the United States, we had the Appropriation Act of, was it like 1920 something, which basically limited the amount of representatives you would have in our government. Right now, there should be something like 12 or 13,000 reps in the House. That's freaking crazy. If we were going by the rules set up day one, there would be 12,000 representatives arguing with each other on C-SPAN. Not 400 and I can't remember what it is right now.
That's like the Imperial Senate, right? That's like how they had it rolled out, like in Star Wars.
435.
435, yeah. For some reason, 425 was in my head, and I was like, I know that's not right.
Yeah. But I just think, I don't know, I can't believe for a second that all the human wants to do is luxuriate all the time once they get a little bit of taste of, you know, some luxury, that they just want to bask in that. I can't. Like, I'm looking forward to, I'm just going to throw something, because maybe it's the last point on this topic, I'm just going to throw something really left field. I was really looking forward to the semantic web, because I was looking forward to distributed conversation and debates like these being tagged, being put out there, surfaced in some kind of reputational ranking system, so that actually we wouldn't have to keep repeating the same debates all over again. If we'd already had a debate and a conclusion was reached, I think this idea has a few names, like liquid democracy, and there's a few other terms, where everyone then becomes the police. Everyone becomes like the body politic.
Well, wasn't Tom talking about like fractional voting yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a form of like liquid democracy, right? We're just talking about what we're actually fractionally voting in.
Yeah, but actually, I think I'm talking about something much more nuanced. Because to me,
you're talking about ideas, right? Like, what ideas should we talk about? Yeah, I just meant, you know, we're taking what he was talking about, transporting it from people to ideas.
Because for me, that this whole debate about money is kind of a necessary non sequitur that we've got to get through, because too many people have old ideas about money. But for me, all the blockchain represents is valuable information. It's memory. It's a very, very solid global dialogue that is unbreakable and self-sustainable. And to me, that is valuable because I find it important. What goes online is virtual, and the word virtual comes from the word virtue. It means important, something that is important to us. Every online action has a corresponding offline action. So really, this is just the metadata for what takes place in space. And I think all information has currency, all information can flow, and all information has value. Therefore, this information that we're trading online every day and that we barely even think about, we actually do it in a days most of the time, is actually money in itself. That is what actually has the value.
Data is a data is a commodity. So I mean, to be money, it must be a commodity. So yeah, data is money. We just aren't. We don't make that connection. It's even more abstract than thinking paper is money.
Yeah, you're right. It is exactly. So the kind of world I'm thinking of is a world where this video would be tagged, and in fact, you can do that, by the way, if you'd like to. You can start putting some timestamps. All you have to do is put like 1:00, and it will turn it into a link in the YouTube comments below, and people can just go back to the 1 minute mark. And people can use that. I've seen people do it all over Twitter, where it's like, oh, this person made a point here, and then puts a hyperlink there. And then if you had some kind of some monetary incentives, some currency incentives, and some good semantic segmentation, you could actually build a system where if somebody wants to formulate a view, they've already got a range of debates and conversations about it that's been made by a very diverse group of people, because a lot of the people with the best ideas are often the quietest people in the room. So often, actually, the person you want to not listen to is the guy on the TV with the megaphone.
See, no one wants to talk now because you just said the most valuable opinion is from the guy that's not speaking. Yeah. So everyone just subconsciously wanted to talk.
Well, I just saw us all unmute our mics to reply, though. So I mean, is that true?
Well, it's not. So it's just about the context, and it's just about the fact that usually the person that has the best idea is the person that's most insecure about coming forward with the idea, because most of the time the right idea is the one that hasn't worked before, because every context is a new context. The problem with regulation is that it doesn't work at scale, because you're not responding to the unique situation in the unique way, you're responding to every unique situation in a very general way. And the reason they do that is because they don't want to have to take the flak for it. It's a cover my ass system. It's like, well, this is what it said to do in the book, that's why I did it, and they always want to defer to somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you on that. I don't have anything to add.
I really like the idea of data and our content and our daily activity that we're doing online as a kind of form of currency or a form of money, because I mean, it already, like you said, Nick, it's already a commodity. I mean, look how it's treated. I mean, it's bought and sold and traded.
I work for a market research firm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anyone that has tried to do a Facebook ad campaign or AdWords campaign, look at all the great amount of data that you can select from, that they've collected, and they're using. That's kind of like their money. That's what people are trading, fiat for, this commodity of this data that they've been keeping track. I got like the search volume, the competition. I want to target people age 36 and above that have one dog and like hats. I can do that, no problem. I can do it on Facebook. I mean, they're really collecting this data like crazy, and we have to somehow take more control of it. And maybe this tipping culture is one way in the right direction about using the tipping and all that kind of stuff for content and all that. But I think that's definitely right.
Well, I think I would go so far as to say that data might be the only real value. I mean, that information truly is what ultimately all value is, and that I think that if you want to take this outside of crypto, it's one of the things that, for instance, my children need to pick up on, is that when you're just openly sharing everything, like every little piece online, you are literally just giving up value, on yourself or whatever to marketing organizations or whoever the hell wants to get out there and take that information. So I think that, us changing the narrative to where everyone's more aware of the fact that there is really a value into information and content and just all of these little, meta things that we don't think of in a traditional sense as being value actually are value. Even if you don't see value to it, there are companies out there that do, and they're going to extract that value whether you want them to or not. So you need to start treating it like it's valuable, because ultimately it is, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, this is a cultural shift. It's a change in culture and values that we're going through right now.
For sure.
For something you said, Jason, it made me just hop over to, how that we had the ruling for the Aereo in the U.S. where they can't broadcast over-the-air TV transmissions over the internet. Have you seen that court case? They basically got shut down.
Yeah. All the mesh TV network thing.
Think about this. They are spitting out. They are doing what you do when you go on the internet. You just scream out into the air. You go on your soapbox and you're yelling and yelling and yelling, and somebody else is just grabbing it and bottling it and putting it over there, moving it around for you. There's no difference between these two things, but the court finds that type of data manipulation or manipulating that type of data money is wrong. That is not right. But they are okay with large companies like the one freaking Nielsen or any Facebook, how they recently did that survey. That's okay. It is okay for them to manipulate your data that you just spit out over into the ether.
Well, okay, so like on that though, it's about its scale, right? So I mean, like that's part of the whole deal, right? Is that we're supposed to believe that we're free. It's because we have the freedom to do all of this stuff. Like we could, the whatever 6 of us can jump on here right now and we can say whatever the hell we want and no one cares because it's a small scale, like that's what it is. And we can aggregate this data however we want to because ultimately it's not a threat because there's just 6 of us. But there is some glass ceiling there, and I think that's what Arrow did. They passed over a line where then they did become an immediate threat or a perceived threat to someone out there in the power structure, and then that's when they really start cracking down on you. So this is it. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen the show Continuum? It's like a sci-fi show. It's based in Vancouver. It's really cool. I don't know if you guys are into sci-fi, but it's like this time travel thing. Well, at the very beginning of it, there's a group of people sitting around a coffee table and in a living room. And and they're being very critical of the government, and they're saying because we don't have freedom, and they're shutting these people down because of the freedom of speech. And then someone there is like, well, obviously you have freedom because you're sitting here in this living room and you can say whatever you want to. And I think that's part of they just want to. Freedom exists in this little tiny bottle that we're supposed to believe that this is freedom. Like this cage right here is freedom, and so you can do whatever you want to as long as you do it here. But if you try to do it out here, well, then it's a problem because then you're fucking with the greater good. And I think I just got completely off the subject there somehow, but I hope.
No, I got you. It's just interesting. I just find it interesting that what is effectively just objectively is just data. There's no difference. You're just spitting it into the aether. It's just air. But it is treated differently in context, and I don't get that personally. It doesn't make sense to me.
It is no different. I mean, there is no difference in it at all. It's really just the scale. It's the reach at which it's being done. If you do it at such and such a level, you're going to rustle some jimmies, as our friend Blake who left would say, when you get it above a certain level of scale. And so I think that it's absolutely ridiculous, and I think that we need to have more of these conversations and point out the hypocrisy that's just sort of everywhere in these sort of things.
Yeah, no, quite. Well, I thought I'd move the conversation along because I noticed that we do have a few questions in the Q&A. So I don't know if you guys know anything about quantum computing. I know it at a very kind of high level. So the question comes from Jasper Canvia. He says, what do you guys think about quantum computing? Would this be a risk to cryptocurrency, especially mining? We also had a follow-up question from Anna Kurth, who said, when answering this question, could we please explain what quantum computing is? So I guess I'll just start off by saying that essentially what quantum computing allows for is a phenomenon known as quantum parallelism. At the moment, most computers, in fact all computers, run on a binary paradigm. So the transistor, the switch inside of your processor, can either be 1 or 0, on or off. Whereas in a quantum computer, each cell can either be 1, 0, 1, 1, and 0, 0, because of something called superposition, which is where you can entangle two particles, put them really, really tightly together, separate them, and then whatever you do to one, it will mirror it in the other one. Effectively, what this would do to something like the SHA algorithm is it would halve the key length. So if your rate of entropy is 256-bit, it would then become 128-bit. And what this would mean is that it's all very theoretical at the moment, especially with the hardware. There's an awful lot of proprietary competition going on behind closed doors, so we don't always know, what the level people are up to. There's something called D-Wave, but to me that just looks like a load of hype and marketing spin. But effectively what it would do is it would put pressure on cryptography as a discipline to come up with a counter force. They would have to come up with quantum cryptography, a key that produced even more entropy, because the idea, but the holy grail of a quantum computer is that you give it a problem to solve and it simultaneously comes up with all of the right answers and the wrong ones. So at the moment this looks very, very theoretical. Even if it were to come out tomorrow, Bitcoin would still be okay for a while, but it would require an awful lot of software development to catch up if it works as anticipated. Does anyone else have any thoughts?
No, you pretty much covered it. This is a question though that has been coming up for years on Bitcoin Talk. I mean, there's tons and tons of threads. If you just go there and type in quantum computer, that you'll have answer after answer after answer. How this really, if it is a threat, it's a threat maybe 80 years off, and it's not something to worry about now, where we should be building out infrastructure and then maybe later being like, okay, we're done with Bitcoin, time to move on to something that's going to be secure for another 80 or 100 years.
Right. And actually, this sort of goes quite nicely with something that came up in one of the panels with Peter Todd and Jeff Garzik, the two core Bitcoin developers, and thought it was very noteworthy that we pretty much only had that as the panel debate with any developers in it. Oh no, there was the other one on the app coins, but apart from that, that was the only kind of development conversation we had the whole time. And they were saying, well, pretty much what I've been saying for a while now, which is that sociologically speaking, this whole crypto movement is incredibly centralized, because I speculate that there are fewer than 1,000 people on this planet right now that know how to set up and run a cryptocurrency, and even 1,000 sounds generous to me. I know most of them because I've frequented the forums and I talk to them, on Bitcoin Talk and in the troll box and stuff every time, and most of them are anonymous. Most of them don't want other people to know who they are. They're certainly not very, shall I say, and I might get into trouble for saying this, not the most effective communicators in the world. Often that's handed over to me because I used to do cryptography when I was a kid, so I do understand it. I can read the code, or at least I'm not afraid to read the code, because it doesn't intimidate me at all. So I can often express to lay people things that are quite complex, but often that means that I'll have to go away and research it first. And often when I give talks, what people in the audience don't realize, and if I'm not always candid, because sometimes I'm a bit nervous and I'm thinking of what to say, I won't tell them, by the way, I was up until 2 in the morning last night looking this stuff up. Please don't think that I've always known this. I know it because I had to look this up on the Stanford EDU website, because it's been 6 years since I researched quantum computing or asymmetric ciphers and stuff like that. So it's just about understanding. The reason I sound intelligent about this stuff is because I understand.
Fresh.
Yeah, I understand the principles underneath it because I did it such a long time ago, but that's still there. That competence, the way that I think, is still there, but I still have to go online all the time looking this stuff up. So I
do that all the time.
Right, and actually, if you go to most offices and you look at people working, most people have to Google their jobs. Well, I don't have to, but they do, because it's the most efficient way of getting things done now.
Even if it's just to get other eyes on the matter.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it just to make sure I'm not the only person who's seen this.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah, quite. And when I went to Lloyd's banking group the other day to give my talk, you wouldn't believe the amount of trouble I had just getting them my presentation because they're not allowed to plug in USB sticks into any of the computers. The Wi-Fi had to be set up especially for me. I had to be given my own pass into a special Wi-Fi thing. I then had to email the guy, but then it turned out that he wasn't, it was blocking it because it was in PowerPoint and it doesn't accept that and all that kind of stuff. So I ended up having to give the presentation from my own laptop, which meant I couldn't record it. And yeah, it was this big, clusterfuck. So the point I'm trying to get to anyway is that we need to inspire young people into learning this stuff, because this area is hard to understand, and it requires finding that person with that gumption and with that energy and enthusiasm for this subject, because otherwise we are going to suffer a massive brain drain and we're not going to have the expertise.
Especially since coins are going to be for everything. This isn't something that's going to weigh. It's going to become more and more. I know I come off as kind of an altcoin hater or whatnot in my Twitter feed or in other communities I've participated in. I don't really hate altcoins. I believe there should be a coin for everything. I am against most of the way altcoins are done right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
totally agree.
I see 99%, even Bitcoin itself could disappear. I would just be like, okay, it's just another one of the coins that exists right now. It has a huge market cap that doesn't last forever.
The problem is that even if you do launch a coin with the best of intentions, that doesn't stop pumper dumpers manipulating it on the exchanges, because as we found at Feathercoin, I got involved in Feathercoin because I spent such a long time in this community. Finally a group of people came along and said, oh yeah, let's just do this, and let's just try and make it an experiment and try to get it working in this local area. And nobody was doing it for the money. I never got that impression. That was why I chose to get involved, because I just like hanging out with them. But then what happened was you got these people on the BTCE exchange, probably the owners of the BTCE exchange, accumulating masses and masses of Feathercoin, putting these huge sell walls, on the sell side, and it just suppressed the price. I don't know what they had, if they had something against us, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, it just totally, and then all these other coins came out, and obviously we're still working on it, we're still doing stuff, but it just, in the end, I said to them, look, don't even bother with PR, right? Because all that's going to happen is if the right people that find your project see you desperately trying to shout and shout and shout, that will put them off. I said, just get your head down, just do the work, and the right people will find you. And then it will be like, oh, cool, so you made an open source point of sale whilst all the greedy fuckers were off chasing the money in Canary Wharf, and you just went off and did it in your spare time. That's great.
Right? Was it Circle? Millions of dollars in VC capital raised, no product. Skyhook produces $1,000 ATM. It takes them it was like 6 months, 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's crazy. There was no VC capital, I don't think, involved in producing the Skyhook, was there?
No, I mean what I love about Kyle is, so he's the founder of CoinPunk as well, which I've been shouting about and telling people to get on board with, because when that lady got up from BitPacer, I was just like facepalm, like straight away, because what Kyle has done, what's his last name? Is it Kyle Drake? I can't remember his last name. That's really embarrassing. But so look up CoinPunk, type that into Google or your favorite search engine, DuckDuckGo preferably, and so what it allows for is
Kyle Drake.
Anyone can set up their own blockchain.info effectively. You can run your own Bitcoin wallet service from your PC and serve people's signatures out. So that I think the private key resides on the central server. So okay, that's suboptimal, but it allows for the signatures to be distributed over the network. So you could be in a village, let's say in Africa, although this isn't tenable at the moment because of the bandwidth restrictions. But what you could do is you could airdrop a PC there, or have someone stationed there to do technical support. They could run their own blockchain.info locally over an SMS gateway, and then people could start transacting just like that. So this is what I mean when I say we've got to start internalizing a lot of these public government services and these corporate services. I mean, my view, as I said yesterday, it's not even the governments we've got to worry about, it's the corporations, because World War II just never ended. I think what happened was we ended up distributing the tyranny into all of these corporations. You're not really free or living in a democracy if every day you have to work for a tyrant and a boss in a classroom or an office somewhere. That's not real freedom. And as a result, I think it's incumbent on us to look at what it is we've externalized pretty much since the beginning of maybe the industrial era, maybe the Renaissance, depends how far back you want to go, because the technology we have now is distinctly different to the technology that we had thousands of years ago. This is binary technology. Like, a lot of our products are made out of plastic, metal, and glass, and these are binary materials. In the field of metallurgy, the study of material science, okay, this is about materials that either are working or they're not working. They don't degrade gracefully. They degrade, completely in one go. The modern technology is defined by its off switch. So what I think we have to do is we have to start atomizing a lot of the functions and a lot of the services that go on in these corporations, so that individuals can do it for themselves. I think it would be great if someone could, maybe we can do it. Maybe we could do a crowdfunding campaign where we take one of these Skyhook ATMs and we could take CoinPunk to some of these villages. I would suggest not Africa right now, because a friend of mine, Richard, went out to Kenya and he said, look, the bandwidth out there, like just to send a Bitcoin transaction is the equivalent of a meal, right? That's how much it costs to send the thing. And the problem with SMS is that it's not very secure. So someone can like spoof your EIMI number and then all of a sudden they've got access to all your money.
I was just watching a video on GSM hacking yesterday. It seems like that's pretty much gonna have to get off the GSM soon. And it's funny, as I had just told Blake that maybe people should just tether off their phones at these conferences and not worry. That's probably not such a good idea in maybe the next year or so.
Yeah. I don't know. I think people need to learn about VPNs. They need to tune into Dark News, which is every Tuesday, hosted by Christoph Atlas. He's a really smart guy. You need to, if you go to DuckDuckGo and you look up VPN for Bitcoin, you can actually buy your own virtual private network for Bitcoin. So it would be anonymous, provided you've done enough things on the back end with Bitcoin, and then you basically get your own internet connection. When you log into a public Wi-Fi, you're actually all that data will be encrypted, and you'll end up going over your own internet, but you'll just be piggybacking off of their bandwidth essentially. So it's like your own sort of private Tor network. And you want to use a VPN where the servers that they use are not domiciled in a country that has an extradition treaty or any kind of agreements with the US and the UK.
Well, I like CJDNS. Have you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would like to see something like Namecoin and merge with CJDNS, maybe some type of proof of route system, and allow people to maybe sell bandwidth. They could build their own antennas and build out a mesh net.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talk about net neutrality. I mean, you're going to pay for access. You're always going to pay for access to somebody else's things. So if you want to use, maybe that's a way of monetizing ISPs at a really small level. You know what I mean? To put money in like your hand because you're providing a wireless service to everybody around you, kind of thing. Participating.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea. And someone else suggested something similar at PorkFest. I think MadeSafe, Paige Peterson said that you could have a situation where you're renting out your hard drive space for distributed storage network. So there's a service at the moment that's already up and running called BitSync. It's like BitTorrent, but what it does is it takes Dropbox. But instead of it residing on a centralized server somewhere where they can be subpoenaed by the US government and things like this, what you do is you take all your data in your folder, it fragments it up like it would a BitTorrent, and then it encrypts all those fragments and then splits it up all over various hard drives around the world. And what's happened is those people are actually renting out that hard drive space for storage, and they're earning, say, Bitcoins or Safecoins or whatever for that service. And you're suggesting a similar thing. That's really, really good. So we all become the data center, and then we all get to run that. Like, is this similar to the sort of left-wing idea of the basic income, do you think? because the left often, I say the left as if there's the left.
I'm not a big fan of basic income. It doesn't make sense to me.
Is it similar to, because Cory Doctorow talks about it in Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom as
You're
well.
still doing something though. Like, you're not just getting something for existing. You're actually deciding, I am going to participate in this community. I am going to receive something from this community.
But it's a minimally maximal return in game theory jargon. So it's a mini max. Yeah, sure. I'm just saying, is it similar to what the left have been campaigning for a long time, where everyone gets to subsist? So where, you know, in the future we're looking at a world where you will be able to subsist, just about exist, by renting out things like your hard drives. I mean, look at how cheap this hardware is now.
I don't disagree with you. I just think that's an inevitability. I don't think that's necessarily going to be need to be done by legislation or any sort of government force. We're just inventing that kind of existence.
So maybe the problem with all the sort of Marxists and the people that have come from that tradition, maybe the thing that they just weren't thinking innovatively enough. They just weren't planning ahead for, like, oh, actually, yeah, we might get, philosophically speaking, we might get to a point where you won't be left for dead, that you will be able to do something, even if it doesn't apply, because you're not talking about something where I have to turn up every day and keep reapplying my effort. You're talking about a passive income where I'm able to leave this device running in the background and it's able to accumulate wealth whilst I do whatever the hell I want. The question has always been, but what would happen if you allowed for that? Because wouldn't people just all slack off and not do anything all day?
Well, if they only have to do the bare minimum, then they're going to do the bare minimum. That's fine. I mean, people are going to do what they have to survive. People subsist on welfare systems because they need it to survive. I'm not saying we should take certain things away from people. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm just saying, if you do so, they're going to try to find a way to live another day. That's just a fact. If they're not, then they're suicidal, and what are you supposed to do at that point?
Right. Yeah, I still think you're going to have a lot of people with ambition that are going to want to do a lot more. I just don't know what a world looks like, because I'm really against the whole kind of Malthusian philosophy, which states that, you know, the world is overcrowded, and, you know, I
don't believe in that at all.
No,
I think that is completely nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense. We don't allocate resources very well. That doesn't mean we're overusing them necessarily. I mean, I think it's just, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but I just don't think we allocate our resources very well. Not that there's too many of us using them.
The world is not overpopulated. It just looks that way because of how we, as you say, allocate our resources. The reason it looks densely populated is because you probably live in a densely populated area, because that's where most people live. The fact is, there's an awful lot of room across the world. It's just that as soon as we get to a wilderness, our instinct is to pave over it and to put concrete because, well, it's easier. And, you know, we can't design our cars to drive on certain conditions, so we just, you know, put some concrete down. But the fact is that if we disappeared, first of all, nature would be perfectly happy without us. If we were gone, 500 years, 1,000 years later, the city of New York, the city of London would all be gone, right? They would be wildernesses again, and there would be some remnants left behind of human civilization, but give it another few thousand years and eventually it would be completely gone. It would be unrecognizable. Leave it a few 100,000 years and you're going to start getting, well, sorry, no more than that, maybe a few million years, you're going to start getting tectonic plates moving, and to the point where you won't even be able to recognize countries anymore. So really a lot of this is just a function of time, and I think that we need to become a lot more in harmony with nature, not to the point where we go back to living in the caveman. I'm not advocating for that at all, but I do think that we need to be more stewarding when it comes to nature, and less kind of like, oh, let's just bring these animals into life just so that we can slaughter them and then flog them on the market and, you know, do all these kind of things. I just don't feel like we're acting in a way that is very responsible, and it's getting to the point where, you know, children are growing up in cities and they have no idea where their food comes from. They got no idea about the sacrifice that it took to get it there, and all of the fuel costs and the energy
it's huge. It's enormous. It's enormous. Have you ever been inside of just an oil refinery? Not even a really massive one, just like a medium-sized oil refinery where they're making gasoline, jet fuel, you know, benzene, freaking lamp oil, plastics, all sorts of crap. It's huge. It's so much work that goes in there. There's over 1,000 people that show up every day just to make sure that thing doesn't blow the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's controlled explosions and chemical reactions and things, and you show up there to make sure it doesn't blow up every day. And that's a huge process. And these are, yeah, it's crazy how much actually goes into what modern society is. And we're so many layers separated from it nowadays. It's easy to get distracted.
But don't you think the internet provides us with an important tool? Now we've got many eyes, and we can feel connected to anywhere in the world. Doesn't that bring the world closer to us?
Oh, absolutely. For sure, I agree with that. I mean, I know things about countries I've never been to, and I would never been able to know if I had just opened my encyclopedias I have over here in my, from the 70s or whatever over here in my bookshelf. I have to go and get the new information that I can only get now because of the internet. I might have in the past been able to get it in a year, 2 years, but I can get it now. I can make judgments on things right now. That changes everything. Changes everything.
So we have Jason back. Jason, how you been?
Good. I just took a break to play Super Mario for the Wii with my son. You gotta have priorities.
Yeah. No, you're doing some good priorities. We have a question here from the Blockchain Consulting Group. Oh, it's not a question, it's just a comment. So he's saying, I wanted to add something to the idea of information as money. Money is the best medium to represent prices, which in an unfettered market relay information about the aggregate of subjective values in the market. Better info only leads to better pricing. Throws straight into your point there, Nick, about having the information sooner rather than later allows you to act on that information.
Isn't that what the stock markets, why they've been moving their high-frequency trading machines closer and closer and closer and closer?
The high-frequency cheating machines.
Yeah.
So to the point where no one takes part in those markets anymore.
It's not even worth it. It's computers playing against each other. It's war simulation.
So yeah, it comes back to the notion of time again. They won't take part in a game that they don't think they can cheat at, right? They only take part if they can cheat.
You bring up time. This is why I actually like the 10-minute block time and like confirmations in Bitcoin. It gives you something. You're like, maybe I'll slow down. Maybe when I go to buy something, I'll sit down and wait a second and have a coffee while this transaction, or I'll communicate with this person at the store. Well, I wait for one verification. What's the big deal? It's 10 minutes. Maybe I could slow down. Maybe I won't make that purchase because I don't want to wait that extra 10 minutes, 15 minutes for the transaction to go across. I need other things I have to do right now. I like that. It gives me more options. Like since adopting Bitcoin, I spend less. And the reason why is because it's not as easy for me to spend Bitcoin, and I don't really see that as a problem. For me, that's kind of a feature of Bitcoin.
It's a feature because it incentivizes entrepreneurs to actually build things and make things that people want. Genuinely, they want and need. The problem with the old inflationary model was that you were forced into spending your money because you didn't want it to hold it whilst it was going down in value. So if you knew that your money was going to decrease in value by 2% per year, you were incentivized to spend it, but you weren't spending on anything very good or anything worthwhile.
Yeah, just spending money to spend money. Like, why not? But I don't even have all of my money in Bitcoins. I don't have a huge amount of Bitcoins. It's just something that has helped me change the way I do things, or I perceive value transfers and whatnot.
Yeah. So Anna says, Chris, you are very good at explaining difficult stuff comprehensively. Thank you, Anna. We've got a ha from Wancor. I think he must have been talking about they don't cheat unless they don't play unless they know they can cheat. That's an idea that I'm getting obviously from Atlas Shrugged. It's not my concept. Tony P, he's a regular and also a feather coiner. He says, missed the first 45 minutes, but did you cover the ASIC threat, and why not go back to SHA and start limiting blockchains? Evenly share the hash would put the people who care about the system and want to develop it back at the front of the industry. Yes, we did. If you go back in the timeline, I think we did talk about that. I think this is getting getting to the point now where all I really want to say on this topic is nobody fucking knows anything. We're all making this shit up. So let's just see, because this is a live high stakes experiment that we're currently engaged in. Like, there was a guy from Blackcoin who sort of got angry at me because I pulled him up on the proof of stake thing. He said the great thing about proof of stake is you don't need all this electricity and stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, but the problem is then in order to sustain an attack, all you've got to do is leave your computer switched on. Like, you haven't actually got to sustain that energy, effort, time, money in order to secure the network every 10 minutes on average. You can just leave your computer idle. You've already made your sacrifice by buying the money, and you can just keep attacking the network over and over again. But of course, you know, he's saying, well, Blackcoin hasn't been attacked in 5 years. Peercoin hasn't really come under a huge attack in the last 5 years. So, 2 or 3 years since that's been going. So it does seem like proof of stake is working and other systems work, but we won't know until this gets to any kind of scale.
And they have more value worth attacking. It's still more profitable to attack people who potentially have Bitcoin than it is to attack a proof of stake coin's network. It's easier even. You know what I mean? It's going to be easier. The malware tools are already out there. You can go spend $1,000 and have some new rootkit that hasn't even been picked up by a AV yet, and it's going to last a week, and you're going to pick up 1,000 Bitcoin.
Right.
That's a hypothetical. I'm not saying that's going to happen.
Do you have a link for that place where I can go buy the rootkit? Like, can you share that with everybody? Because that sounds like a good plan.
Something like that would probably cost more than $1,000. In all honesty, let's just throw it out a hypothetical price. There are those markets. There are absolutely dark markets where people sell exploits, zero-day exploits all the time. It happens. It's happening right now. That these people are black hats are exchanging exploits for information, for money, for whatever.
Right,
well,
and also, just like in
that article from the other day, everything is broken. Whenever you get an update on your computer, you're actually getting a notification that there's a zero-day exploit on your computer, and they just fixed it. Sorry, go ahead, Jason. I cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say that, just going back to our ASICs conversation, is that with those exploits, it's the same thing. Is that whatever's the most valuable to exploit is where there's going to be the most effort being put into exploit. So it's like when we're talking about different types of currencies, absolutely. Right now, I think the best return on value isn't attacking the network itself; it's attacking the individual holders of the currency. And so, and until the value changes, we're not going to see a whole lot of change there.
And Chris, you said something earlier that you had certain walls pop up on Feathercoin. I personally think, from my just watching the different altcoin markets, I believe those are bad actors trying to launder coins across multiple blockchains. And you can usually see these things happen around hacks. So whenever there's a big Bitcoin hack of a sort, later on, the markets on other altcoins will start building walls, and they will build some sort of plateau on where these people can do a lot of trading really quickly and exchange a ton of value and basically disperse it across many different blockchains. And then they bring it back into Bitcoin. You have no idea who it is.
So that's kind of like a mixer.
Yeah, absolutely. Altcoin exchanges are the leading money launderer in this entire industry. It's too easy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the built-in functions of every altcoin that can sustain any value is the fact that you're putting an air gap in between the two blockchains.
It's brilliant. That's their best feature.
Agreed.
And additionally, you can use Litecoin to send your money between exchanges faster. So it's actually faster than Bitcoin.
Exactly.
That's interesting, and so you can even make money whilst you're doing it. You don't even have to pay the fees, because if you're controlling those walls, psychologically you've got the edge.
And you're in the troll box, getting people interested. You're bad. Oh, look at this stuff is going. We're gonna be on this one right now.
Yeah.
I seen it happen. I'm not a big crypto trader. I'm more of a lurker on everything I do. I like to lurk and watch. And that's kind of what I felt has been going on with the altcoin market. you'll see valuations go crazy and then a plateau whenever somebody's trying to move or launder coins.
Jason, have you ever been in the troll box before?
I have watched the troll box because it's some of the most entertaining stuff going on in crypto, and that's everywhere. Like every troll box on it, not just exchanges. Like, have you ever been to like rest in peace, Just Dice? Like, have you ever been in the Just Dice troll box? I mean, that thing is amazing. And then just the scale of human emotion that shows up in that box is it's priceless. And then like I've been I show up in troll boxes, and then like the troll box has a spontaneous fundraiser for Sean's Outpost or something. Like, it's just crazy stuff goes on in the troll box.
Wow, that's pretty cool if it does that. I didn't kind of realize. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anti-Semitism at the moment, like we have at the minute. This is in the BTC.
There's so much crazy.
There's
It's crazy.
There's Holocaust deniers. There's racists. Obviously, a lot of misogyny.
I was having this conversation with my fiance, not last night, the night before, and I was like, I am so happy that crazy is so decentralized now. Like, we aren't funneling all of our crazy into certain, like, we're not becoming crazy fanatic Catholics and like burning shit to the ground, for instance, right? We're creating all these different fandoms and becoming so insane that all the crazies becoming less of a risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah. Like, I don't know how I feel about it. I used to spend a lot of time in there, and then I kind of spent less time in there. I just feel like people just get manipulated in there.
Oh yeah, especially new people. That's the main reason I try to stay away from trading altcoins, is because a lot of new people get brought in and they spend their money, hard money, the difficult journey of putting fiat into Bitcoin or whatever value they want into Bitcoin, and they get their Bitcoin, and then someone tells them, hey, you know what, we're going to double this if you come and fucking invest in this coin. And they're just pump and dumping. They don't understand who these people are. They don't understand what this has happened before, any of that. They just come in, they see, they get, the shiny, flashing lights and ching, 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 and they're like, I'm going to do it. And they lose their money.
So the what I think is disturbing more than that is that obviously that's going to happen. But like, I mean, are you guys familiar with the old carnival concept of man-eating chicken? Whereas like you would go to an old time carnival or circus or whatever, and there'd be a sideshow. They would have a giant sign. It would say, "Come see the amazing man-eating chicken." And then they would get a couple of rubes that would go in to see the man-eating chicken, and there would just be a man in there eating some chicken. So he would just be a dude eating some chicken. They all got screwed, and then they'd all be pissed off. And then they'd go, look, you can be pissed off, and you could yell at us, or you could go get your friends, and you could go tell your friends about the man eating chicken. And then you can sort of, pass the buck. And that exact same thing happens in the troll box. It's just like that. You get brought in, you get pumped and dumped on, and they're like, yeah, look, you could go get pissed off, or you could go get a bunch of your friends that don't know about the pump and dump, bring them in here, and then you can be on the other side of the pump and dump.
So it's basically a pyramid scheme, otherwise known as MLM, multi-level marketing, which is also a pyramid scheme. And the lie that they're telling is that this can last forever. There will always be enough people to satisfy this demand. And like I've been saying all along, I think the whole way the economy is going, because the whole economy is a pyramid scheme, if you think.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all to do with the way we relate to scale. It's all to do with how we live together on this rock, and how we sustain and how we cater to each other's needs. It's a way of relating to distance. I'm not claiming I have any of the answers. I'm just hoping that
You're stating your observations.
Yeah, I'm saying that I think the problem is that people take too much for granted. They're too quick to jump to conclusions. They don't think enough, critically think. They're not willing to overturn previously held assumptions. And I think you're seeing this new kind of movement of people now that are getting a voice online who actually are a little bit more introvert and perhaps spend a little bit more time thinking before they spend speaking. I mean, I speak a lot now, but I never used to. I was quite shy, and I never thought of having a video channel, but all I do pretty much most of my time is just read and learn and learn and learn. So when I do get on the microphone and people start sending me tips and saying they want me to do it more, it's like, oh great, now I actually get to, you know, have my point of view. And I think now the job that Tom and the rest of us have to do is to get more people to do the same. Like, this worked for me. It's not about me being right about everything. It's about me helping to build like an atmosphere where other people can have their say and other people can be right about something.
Sorry, I have something. I just got an email from work.
No worries.
Quick update on the prices. We've had a large spike in Bitcoin prices about maybe 15 minutes, half an hour ago, all the way
wow.
to 630, 631. As you can see, the spike started here in the 620s. If we zoom in more, you can see it has a bottom at 620 and a height of 628. After that happened, we've been rolling back into the 630s. So
I think I've checked the Bitcoin price once, maybe twice since like the 3rd.
Well, it's been boring. It's been kind of boring and depressing, like usual. But this is a little bit of nice news. So maybe we can see a little extension here. Although if we zoom back more, let's see. Oh, that's a nice upward curve there.
I think it's all undervalued. I think there's services that Bitcoin renders that make it incredibly valuable, much more so than even like a $10 billion market cap. I think proof of existence alone, that
Yes.
feature on top of the blockchain, is at least $100 billion of value. If I'm to express a dollar value, I would put on proofofexistence.com, $100 billion. On what it brings to just that type of service and feature brings to the Bitcoin ecosystem, what it brings to its value, that's at least $100 billion. Look at some of the industries out there that are $100 billion large. What the fuck do they do?
And in about 30 hours' time, we're going to have the next difficulty adjustment, and it's going to be one of the smallest in over a year, well over a year.
Amazing.
You've got to go back. I mean, you've got to go back to May 2013 before you have like a single-digit uptick, and then before that it's January 2013 where we had a negative uptick, and that was not long after the block reward adjustment halved from 50 bitcoins down to 25 bitcoins, so that was somewhat to be expected. So yeah, this is pretty remarkable. We had this huge drop off here during the beginning. This is what tends to happen, I've noticed, is every time you get a difficulty adjustment, well, just before you get the difficulty adjustment, you get a sudden drop off. We also see it here at the end of June, we see it here, we see it here. This was the biggest one where it went down from like 120 back down to like 80 at one point, and it spent a lot of time there. Which is why we've only got a 4% adjustment. So I think, you know, if you're trading on Sexio, I mean, you see that normally if I go out to the 1 day, you see that when they first launched, it was just a waterfall. I mean, it was just precipitous, just down, 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 down. Now, for the last few months, since the end of April, we've been pretty much knocking around the 0.006 per gigahash. This price, 0.006 of a Bitcoin for 1 gigahash, pretty much been knocking around. Now, of course, we've had a drop off today, as you would expect, a few days leading up to the difficulty adjustment, but given that it's only 4%, I'm guessing that we're probably going to hold out here. Now, that's a very expensive price, by the way. If you go to someone like PB Mining,
there's also Petamine. Theirs is supposedly the cheapest gigahash you can buy.
Right.
If you're buying their shares.
Right.
I have a friend. I have a friend who's got in on them in the beginning. He made a killing off of the petahash security.
What's it called?
Petamine.
Petamine. Yeah. So PB Mining are selling for 0.003 of a Bitcoin. And so that's more than double on Sexio. I'm guessing because there's so much more competition for the shares, and maybe, I don't know, I have actually invited Sexio onto this show, so maybe I shouldn't say too much now, just wait for them to come on and we can talk to them. But yeah, I don't know if it's just because there's more competition on that market or what's happening.
But you can't actually sell your own gigahash on there, right? It's only cloud mining. At least from what I understood, you're basically buying like a share in the hashing they have set up. You can't like set up your own and then participate in their market, right?
Yeah, I thought that anyone who put their hashing on GigaHash could sell their shares on Sexio, but I might be wrong about that.
I don't think so. I think the GigaHash is separate. I think it's like their cloud hashing venture, and then they sell. So they might be doing some sort of backing or manipulation to keep the price up.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that. But
well,
yeah.
I'm not accusing them of doing it. I'm just maybe it's a thing that is occurring.
Yeah, because the other market rates for GigaHash is even at 0.003. I mean, a basic calculation, assuming it only goes up by 18% on average, which so far has been the average for the last few years, you're still not going to make any money. Certainly not in 18 months. You might not even make your money back at all. Actually, just thinking out calculations on the top of my head, there's 20%. You've only got the first 2 months to make most of your money back. Haven't you? You've only got a few difficulty adjustments, so you need to buy at just the right time. You needed to have bought this round.
It's all it's when you buy, when you mine, and when you sell your hardware. That's the only way I have personally ever broken even or made money on hashing, and I'm pretty sure that's the only way anybody has ever really done it, unless they were clearly the first person to get into the GPU ASICs.
The prediction on the last panel of the day at CoinSummit was the ASIC mining panel, and they were predicting 350 petahash by the end of the year. So that would be a 3.5 times increase.
That was the conservative estimate as well. Some of them were saying as high as 800.
Right. That is insane. But the fact is, it's a zero-sum game, so you only make money if you've got an awful lot of it and you know when to sell it. So
and those were only a few players in this huge market.
Yeah. So you only make money if you get the hashing power at the right time, and then you've got to sell it to someone else, because of course it loses its value very, very quickly. So it's a game where you've got to give it to someone else just before it loses its value. So someone else has got to take the other side of that bet.
I believe some of them do franchising as well. So I know ASIC Miner and like some of the people they sell chips to, they've done franchising in the past where you sign a contract, you're going to host a container full of hardware or whatever, and you're going to pay them a certain percentage, and then after it's not profitable or you don't deem it profitable, you can sell the hardware and recoup whatever costs it was on for you or something like that. Their contract was posted recently on their thread for ASIC Miner.
So we have another question from the blockchain consulting group. Isn't it more profitable to attack legacy banks than Bitcoin? Agree that the client side is most profitable to attack, not the network when it comes to Bitcoin. Right, so this is he may be responding to a comment I made the other day where I said that the fact that Gox got attacked is quite reassuring, because at least they weren't going after the core protocol. That tells you that the centralized institutions that sit on the front end are the best vector. In fact, in a way, Bitcoin makes those front end centralized servers more vulnerable because of the non-reversibility. The reason why it's not profitable to attack a bank is because they can reverse those charges, because they control the ledger. They've got dominion over that information. So it wouldn't, you can, if you rob a bank, the best way to rob a bank is to work for a bank, that old saying. But in the old days, you used to break in through the front door. Well, no one does that anymore, because that's a mug's game. The problem is that even if you do something, there was a news story last year.
Put on a nice suit.
Put on a nice suit, and then you can steal all you want. That's fine. And when you get caught, it's fine, because you're too big to jail, so you won't even have to do any time for it. You'll just get given more money. There was a news story last year, I think, of somebody who had the nerve to walk into a bank posing as IT. So it was clearly he knew someone who was working there, and he just set up a dongle. He just set up this Wi-Fi repeater that just relayed all the Wi-Fi information back to his computer, and just sat outside and started siphoning off all the funds. That was incredible. So he obviously had somebody on the inside of the bank that signed off on him going in as IT, and then he just routed their servers. Perfect.
What is it? Phishing gets you far.
Phishing gets you far. But he ended up getting caught, so of course it didn't work. But of course with Bitcoin, you don't even have to show up at the bank. You can just do all this online. That's why I worry about a lot of these centralized, exchanges. See, what I want is an exchange that uses a multi-sig so that every time I have to make a trade, I've got to have a USB stick with a signature on it with the actual blockchain private key, okay? And I've got to be able to put it in, and when I want to make a trade, so in order to log in, I've got to have this on me like a Trezor, where it's hardware blocked, so the private key stays on this hardware device, just like the Trezor, Trezor. Type that in DuckDuckGo, because it's hardware security. And what it does is the exchange says, oh, you want to make a trade. It sends the amount and all the information to the hardware USB device, gets the device to sign the transaction for the blockchain. The device then sends it back to the internet, and the blockchain signals that you validated this transfer of money. So you only have to give your money, in order for them to steal it, they have to get the exchange's database and they have to get your piece of hardware at the same time. Because no one's breaking into your house to steal your private keys, because sociologically that's a different type of criminal. The type of person that breaks into your house isn't, generally speaking, I don't want to tempt fate too much, isn't the type of person that goes around stealing private keys off of servers. That's usually a script kiddie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So no,
they're different criminals.
The Ubisoft, the UB key.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that? That's something they say here that LastPass uses. I know that Mt. Gox used to use this, and I saw recently that Blizzard uses this for the World of Warcraft type accounts. And it is, like you're saying, Chris, it's a little USB fob that has some kind of a key inside that you need to connect to your server. So.
But this is an important point to make about the UB key. So all the UB key is a keyboard. It's a keyboard with one button that has a predetermined set of keys that it's going to send to your computer. What I'm talking about is having the private key on the from the blockchain private key, it baked into the circuitry of your device such that it never leaves that device. All it does is signs the blockchain transactions, so that the internet never gets to see your private key at all. The problem with those UB keys is that a piece of software can be used to sniff, what's on there. And as a result, it just basically becomes a really elaborate password stealing device, effectively. But not if it's one time. If you have the OTP set up, you're okay. But remember, that didn't protect the customers at Gox, and it also doesn't encrypt what the contents of their server. So if they're using bad security practices, they're not salting or hashing a lot of their passwords and things like this. Like sometimes, like some forums that I've seen before, they salt the hash with the person's username, and it's like in the source code, and it's like, so all I have to do is I have to view source on your login page, and it tells me that you're salting the hash with the username of the user. Thanks. Like, Jesus, like, what are these people thinking? The thing is that cryptography, just because you're a coder, doesn't mean you understand cryptography, doesn't mean you get security, right? Doing code is really not that difficult to learn. It's just that most people get scared off by what it looks like. So what people forget is that being a security expert is a discipline in its own right, and that a lot of developers just can't be trusted with a lot of this security stuff.
Well, then you can't trust anybody. There's no recourse for letting somebody else hold the private keys. There's none whatsoever. If somebody else is holding the private keys, you don't have access. It's not yours.
Just assume that it's not yours. Yeah.
We got a question about RealCoin.
We got a question about RealCoin?
Yeah.
Oh, RealCoins. Any thoughts on that? Yeah, we talked about it earlier. Just basically, it's a stupid idea. A fucking stupid idea. No, it answers a marketing message. It answers a marketing message. That message is, oh, Bitcoin's too volatile. Nobody will ever sign up to it. And then they totally forget that the dollar itself has lost 96% of its value since 1929. And it's like, well,
I live down the street from a McDonald's. When I moved into this place, they used to have on the sign, dollar double cheeseburger or whatever. Now it's $1.29. That's 30 cents. That's a 30% increase in 3.5 years. That's insane. That's a lot of people eat at McDonald's.
Yeah, Tom does.
That place is packed. Always packed.
When I'm on the road,
I will not hate on McDonald's. I don't eat it very often, but whatever. They serve food. They do what they do. They pay people. I'm okay with it.
The key thing is not to eat there all the time, of course. I had some of that dollar latte. They've got these dollar iced lattes that I had.
Coffees.
Oh God, yeah. It's like they
So
just
sweet.
sugar and yeah, like just don't do it with the sugar. And then she was asking me this question, like over the tannoy. I went my first ever time going through a drive-through, right? So I'm like, I don't know, just however it comes. She's like, do you want sugar with it? And I'm like, well, just give it to me how you gave it to me the day before. It's like whatever, because all I said the day before was just iced coffee thing. So I get this thing, and it is like they put like. They added coffee to the sugar. That's what it was like. They added. It was like they added coffee to the sugar, and I was just like, oh, I can't.
I don't even put creamer in my coffee. I drink my coffee black.
Black, yeah, that's the best way to do it. So we got Ray back. Yeah, people have been coming and going. Don't know what they think this is. It's supposed to be running like a TV show or something.
Maybe we could go 24/7, 365. It's right there.
We should. I think we should just do.
Stream for charity.
It's a complex scheduling issue based upon time zones.
Tom can just hold up his QRs from his Piper wallet and.
I got one right here.
We're trying to raise money for whatever cause. We're going to stream until we raise 2 Bitcoins for some bullshit.
Yeah.
I held up this one yesterday, and someone already gave me like 0.002, which is like $1.20. So
awesome.
Cool.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So it's $1.
I had an idea. I was tweeting it last week when that MMA fighter Chris Camozzi was having a fight, and he had the Bitcoin QR code on his shorts, and he had it on his fight banner. And I thought that was super cool, and it got me wondering. I was like, there's an opportunity for somebody right now to fill a void for gambling and MMA or boxing or things like that, and participate in a prediction market, because you could have, as these fighters are training, as whatnot, you're paying for their training. You could maybe kick 50% of the coin that comes into an address directly to the fighter, and the other 50% goes to like the betting pool or whatever. So as all the way up until the fight is finished, people are betting one way or another.
That's a great idea. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. Nicky, that's an awesome idea. These guys are underpaid anyway. MMA fighters, they could really use
are.
I
would rather pay them. I would rather kick them, $4 for their fight, give them $3 directly for their fight, than have to go and pay $60 for a pay-per-view through some fucking corporation, et cetera, et cetera. And I know they're not getting. But they're the one giving me the entertainment. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
are you listening, Zufa? Are you listening, Zufa? Damn it!
And remember, in their job, they actually get paid less if they lose. So it's like a very serious job. Like.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. Imagine if the entire time up into the fight, they're getting paid. People are like, I'm supporting this guy. I'm betting on him to win. This is the dude I'm betting to win. And not only am I betting on him, I'm helping feed, shelter, and pay his trainers.
Training, nutrition, his health, right. Dude, you're onto something right there. You are definitely onto something. Great idea.
What you're really talking about is like the personal sponsorship of a sports team. I know that
essentially
the Vlog Brothers, they sponsored a soccer team in England, and it's like a really small soccer team, so they got a pretty big sponsorship, and the Vlog Brother community is pretty large, their YouTube show. And next season, they're going to be on the shorts of the team shorts. They're going to have a Vlog Brothers type logo. So yeah, it's really cool. It's accessible. And Bitcoin could do this. The only reason that Dogecoin had a car is because our Dogecoin talked about getting a car, and a lot of people said, "Hey, that's really cool. I'll put in $10. I'll put in $100 and whatever. We'll get a car."
Somebody had got 30 G's or whatever for potato salad because they fucking put it out there. I'm doing something stupid. I mean, it happens. People pitch money to the stupidest shit all the time.
Right.
I mean, you're not even going to get an opportunity to even have that money unless you're even trying for it in the first place. Like, that dude probably was like, aha, this is an entire joke. 30 G's.
You know how many MMA fighters to get 30 G's?
Right?
Salivate. When you make it 8 and 8, right?
They show up for 6 and 6.
8 times the show. Right. 6 times the show. And 6 times to win. They got trainers to pay for. They got managers. They got clothing. They got food, shelter. They're providing a lot of entertainment. That's a great idea, dude.
For Zuffa running a promotion, they don't do a whole lot of I don't feel they do a whole lot of promoting.
No, they really
they promote the product.
on fighters. They always tell fighters to tweet and the social media and build their own audiences. And then also, yeah, Dana White's betting like he's betting 25 dimes and tipping 10 dimes or whatever to waiters and waitresses when he goes out, you know, and has a night on the town at the Palms Casino. You know, he'll take them for a couple million, and he won't pay his fighters anything more than 6 times the show and 6 to win. Wow.
Right. It is what it is. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but I think
I hear the passion. I love it. I hear the passion. I hear the fire in it.
I think that's something that would help those fighters if they could do something like that. And like I said, it doesn't just create. It's not just. It's a prediction market along with gambling and feeding stuff. Like it's a combination of things. I just think that would be something that might help like the lower guys.
No, I think that's a great idea. It gives them more leverage. Takes a lot of the pressure off of them. A lot of them, hey, look, when they lose, not only did they lose, they were in a physical fight. People punched them, you know, submissions and everything else. But then they lost money that they got a percentage they got to pay out to the trainers, to the managers, their family. They have to eat. You know, geez, it's 6 times the show and 6 to win. It's not really wow. You know, hey, it's not my business model though. You know.
That's why I don't fight. I'm not an MMA fighter. I'm not even going to go down that road.
And remember, like, things have gotten better historically. They now get to live after the fights. It used to be the loser dies.
Right.
So it's a lot better.
Oh, God.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
Yeah, prediction market live. That's a great idea for mixed martial
arts.
arts.
All right, Chris, get us back on track. What else is going on?
So, well, I was going to say in a few hours we've got the Bitcoin group, haven't we? So I was going to say, should we wrap this up because I need to eat?
I need to write the Bitcoin group if you want to have one.
I ate like 8 hours.
And obviously, I keep doing live shows all day, so I keep not doing Mad Bitcoins, which I know everyone loves it when I don't do my show.
I think we should just keep the whole thing running for like constantly. Like we did get a tweet from Bitcoin Art Galleries.
I told you, just we're put up a QR code. We're raising money for charity. We're not going to stop streaming until we make 2 Bitcoins to buy Tom a Skyhook fucking ATM. Yeah, we're not hopping
I'm
off.
already ahead of you, man. I bought a Skyhook ATM.
Oh shit! Then we're not doing it until we buy Chris a Skyhook ATM.
Wait, I mean, I also got this thing right here. I'm going to use right with it, the Piper wallet. Not that they're not really plugging me, but this is the easiest way to print a paper wallet if that's something you're interested in. So.
Yeah, I talked to Ralph the Ninja, and I was kind of gun shy at first when I think they were talking about KYC, but then I told him, look, man, I'm taking it to Columbia. He's like, no problem, no KYC. I'm like, yes, beautiful.
Yeah, the form I filled out was American only form. So yeah, I think you're solid on the Skyhook to another country. And again, even for a demo unit, like it's a test unit. It's not going to make lots of money. It's going to show people how you can put money in and get Bitcoin out, and that's the magic. So.
Just want to show you something pretty phenomenal, right? So we were trying to get like Nixie Pixel, who does some great videos. She's been making videos for like six years now on open source software, how to run Linux. She's now up to $5,674 per month. She's got 463 patrons. This is on Patreon, so this isn't actually going to be for Bitcoins and stuff. So it looks like she's got some merchandise situation going on, but I mean that's a pretty good salary.
Good for her. That is awesome. That is awesome.
Not bad at all.
Yeah,
not bad.
That's pretty good. That's pretty.
What did she do? Did she build up her audience?
That's awesome.
First
She completely voluntary.
Years building her audience, but she never asked for anything in return. So she's built up all this goodwill, and not even like consciously building it up. She's just, it's just kind of happened. She had a passion. And she went out and she executed on that passion. She just went and made videos about something that she cared about. She got a lot of flack because, she's a woman and stuff like that. But she kept doing it anyway, despite all the trolls. And now it's coming home to roost.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Awesome. Great for her.
That's great.
Yep. And it's completely voluntary. No one has to give her anything. She didn't force her thing down anybody's throat. She just did it, put it out there if anybody is willing to pay for her product, and she's making good money doing it.
And so maybe just to wrap up, if you guys are up for wrapping up, because I have to go eat at some point, but more than happy to leave it live. I wanted to maybe make a comment. I don't want to be too unfair though. So there was a comment by the CEO of GoCoin at the CoinSummit, where he basically said that that the Bitcoin industry is thriving because of all the pretty girls that attend the conferences. And I don't want to like lay into him too much, because my experience of this guy otherwise has always been very, very positive, and that sounds like what they're working on is very good. I actually don't remember his name now. But I was just like, oh my god, I just can't believe it. Yeah, I was like, is anyone actually going to say something about that? Because there was like a stunned silence. Like, talk about awkward. Like, you know what I mean? Where it's a bit like, oh god, who's the lucky lady tonight that's going to actually, have to go out with this guy? I was just like, oh, it's just really patronizing, and I just felt like, dude, face palm. Does anyone remember when Bitcoin was full of like awkward, geeky men that were kind of with an underlying misogynistic tone? Like, does anyone remember that? Oh yeah, nothing's really changed. Like, yeah, how about we treat people like people and we stop drawing arbitrary boundaries around each other? Like, oh, you're a different gender. Oh, you've got a different color hair to me. Oh my god, that's so weird.
Who said that yesterday? That the internet, we're just a name behind a screen. There's no. For instance, whatever you guys look like, whatever, that had zero influence on the how I took your information, because it just didn't exist until I went out of my way to find what you guys look like or more information about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we probably all grew up on the internet. We grew up with just seeing a little name in an IRC channel or some handle on an ICQ. Like I associate. I use they, not because I'm trying to be politically correct, just because it's a singular fucking gender neutral term for somebody I don't know.
English language doesn't really give us much in the way of gender neutrality, does it? But so we don't have a lot of choices. But yeah, I also, maybe just to kind of finish up on this thought, having said that We asked Toshi, was like, blimey, has anyone actually learned anything that they couldn't have done in an hour's worth of Google? And the sad truth is, no, not really. Like,
not for most of it.
It's a very expensive event, £1,400. It's basically 4% of a nurse's annual salary here in the UK for 2 days. And when the cameras turned back on the audience and you got to see the kind of clothes that people were wearing and stuff like that, you did kind of get the sense. I mean, some people that I know didn't even turn up on the second day. Like Max Kaiser didn't.
Yeah, it was way empty. It was way empty.
Yeah. And I just think, I don't know, like, do you really want to hang around with money? I felt like this was money talking to itself. This is just the old money, like, getting together and just going.
I find it interesting that some of those people wouldn't want to listen to what the people doing the mining, like, those guys are a huge freaking part of this ecosystem, a huge industry that is being created right under their feet, and they're like, whatever.
Yeah. And also they got it wrong.
More lax than Eloy, right?
They said that mining. They said that mining was payment processing, and it is, but it's also securing the network. You're also protecting it from any kind of nefarious actors coming on, and maybe it's just as well these cryptocurrencies came about because otherwise we were going to have all this surplus computing capacity and nothing to do with it other than hacking people's passwords. Whereas now you can actually apply it to generate some currency. So I sort of felt like, with Moore's law, there had to be something that you were going to have to do with that CPU, that latent CPU power, because not enough people right now are protein folding. Nobody's kind of directing their CPUs at a research institution to try and cure diseases.
I was thinking about my old days in SETI at home the other day, and how nowadays kids are mining bitcoins and making money, and back then I was just looking for aliens and making nothing. So.
Right.
I just wanted to find aliens. I had extra computers.
I used to do the same thing, Tom. Yeah. Used to do the same.
I have certificates printed out. Like, you've printed 1,000 units. You've done 2,000 units. I can't trade that in for any money. Like, I was on the wrong thing, man.
All right, guys. So, final thoughts from any of you?
I actually liked the CoinSummit as a whole. I thought their streaming of it was really well done, and they were willing to put our tweets, no matter how ridiculous, up on that screen behind those speakers. So, I mean, it was expensive to attend, whatever. They're trying to get a certain type of crowd there in person, but it wasn't like the barriers of entry were very high for anybody to follow along with the conference as a whole. I'm kind of torn between. Yeah, it's too expensive for you or I to get into, but at the same time, we were able to watch it. We were able to participate somewhat, and that's a lot. That I think accounts for a lot, and I think they should. My hat's off to them for that.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's like the Bilderberg Group with a window.
Yeah, very good. I'm tweeting that out.
Look at like Bitcoin in the Beltway, right? I'm still videos from that are still just coming out. Like even this last week, I just watched a video that the Bitcoin Beltway happened a while ago already. You know, that's like a long time ago in this Bitcoin world that Bitcoin Beltway happened, and videos are still being released. Information from
I went to PorcFest in between there, so that was a week delay of terrible.
I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying, from anybody in general, there was no live stream for me to participate in.
Yeah, but if every single person in that room paid £720, assuming, then they've made about £300,000. So they could easily afford to pay a professional team of people to do a live stream.
And the internet at Bitcoin and the Beltway was really terrible, actually.
But the internet, Canary Wharf,
the internet was
bad.
You've got the best internet in the world in Canary Wharf. So you've got the backbone to the internet.
That must be why they had the conference there. The beautiful glass room and good internet. I'm starting to see it. Is it near mass transit? Could I get there on the tube?
Yeah. Taking the piss out of Britain again.
We don't even have a tube in California.
I'm not against money. I see it. Money is necessary, and the more of it makes life better. Let's but what it is you do with it. If they brought a lot of value, and they did, good point, Nick. They brought a lot of value, which they didn't have to do, and if they used a lot of those funds that they got in order to continue to bring value, and we were just talking about production values right now, if they had a higher production value, on-the-fly delivery of that content over the web, etc., versus something like Bitcoin in the Beltway, which wasn't able to do that. Maybe they were undercapitalized. I don't know, but they had sponsors. They sold out the room. They have the scratch. It's what they do with it, though. And if they're going to continue to put square pegs in round holes and attempt to shoehorn cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin into that legacy system, then people outside of that inner circle, so to speak, should be activists themselves and do things and have the meetups and have the discussions like we're doing now. I mean, it's great, Chris. I mean, this is fun. Thanks for inviting me on, all you guys, and have these discussions and bring it to the forefront.
It might still have a positive effect. Some of the rich, fancy people in this room could get into Bitcoin. Some of them could explore and learn more about it. Even watch this show. They could learn about what's going on.
Yeah, sure.
But my final thought was just to thank Red Rhino Montreal, MTL, on Twitter, because he heard me yesterday talking about how I needed a new microphone to try to get stereo going when I'm out doing these interviews, and how the current microphone I have, I kind of have to hit the people in the face with it if I want to record them properly. And people don't like that when you hit them in the face with a microphone. Even if they're on TV, they'll reject that. But he's going to help me out. He works at like a microphone shop or something, and he's going to try to get me a deal on a microphone. And, of course, I'll try to plug his microphone shop as well and that kind of thing. So, yeah, the internet works. Just put what you need out there. Don't be greedy. I don't need 2 microphones. I don't need 3 or anything. I just need the one that works better, and that's all I'm trying to do is improve the quality of the show. So thank you, Red Rhino. Cool stuff.
Very, very good.
Awesome.
So yeah, maybe just to finish up, Anna Kurth says, that guy did bad research. There's been lots of pretty girls around Bitcoin for a long time. And by pretty, I mean smart, inspiring, and amazing. Very good point, Anna. So thank you very much for your time, as always. We're really glad. We've kept the numbers up this time. It was up well over 30 viewers for most of the show. So thank you very much for staying tuned. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at WorldCryptoNet. You can follow me at Mr. Chris Ellis. Send us your thoughts, your comments, if you've got any ideas for any future videos. We will see you in a few hours, hopefully, for the Bitcoin group, if Thomas gets some time to actually write it. So hopefully, see you then.